That's true in more ways than one, my friend. That's true in more ways than one. Looks like we got a caller. Let's see if we can get this caller on here.
Hi.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Is my audio good?
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to Broomstick. Um, we're here. We got a new guest, and we got our boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got our boy Judas here too. What's going on with y'all? Who's this new guest? How you doing, man?
Pretty good.
All right, all right. Yeah.
I was in your stream one of the after show, but I just changed my handle once again.
Okay,
But
okay.
yeah, we talked for probably like 30 minutes. We started talking about tech, but
Okay, yeah,
apparently
I
some
remember you.
people
All
didn't
right,
like
all right.
that.
What Judas, was that like a weed pen? What was that you had there?
Nicotine.
Oh, okay. On the Nikki. All right, all right. Yeah, man, I don't know about y'all, man. I'm about running out of copes at this point. Um, it's we're getting to that
Did you
that
play Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero?
have I played that? No, I don't think so. I haven't played a Dragon Ball game since that one on the GameCube was
Kakarot?
was goated.
Kakarot? Did you play Kakarot?
I'm trying to remember that. I think Budokai 2 or
I,
Budokai 3. Yeah, that was my
I bought Kakarot and like I couldn't figure out how to beat Raditz the first boss that you play in like the first 10 minutes of the game.
Looks like
And
we got
I literally was stuck on that boss fight for a year until I figured out how to the strategy to do it.
All right, all right. Yeah, and anything else
Did you have did you do you know about do you know about the game JoJo Bizarre Adventure game on PS3 called Eyes of Heaven?
No, dude, I'm not really that into JoJo's. I don't really think it's my kind of thing. I get the appeal, but it's just not for me.
What's the appeal? What's the appeal of JoJo?
Yeah, your connection's kind of bad, Judas. But yeah, yeah, man. I mean, I just don't get JoJo's to me. It's just very like it's very arbitrary humor, and it's you watch any anime, right? It's a several hour investment of your time and your life, and I don't know. I don't feel
Yeah,
like JoJo's really kind of like scratches that itch where it's like this is worth my time. I want to keep watching it. This feels like a supreme art form. To me, it's just kind of like a awkward, funny, kind of bizarre satire, uh, which I
I
feel
never got into anime.
like One Punch Man or something like that. I feel like does maybe scratches that itch for me a bit more. Yeah, for me, anime man is like when the copes got super bad here in the West with like Hollywood. I really noticed it, especially during like the lockdowns and stuff, where it was just like, man, Hollywood wasn't even trying to hide it. As soon as like Biden got in and there was lockdowns and stuff, Hollywood didn't even try to hide it. They really were trying to like push messaging. Um, just a bunch of crazy stuff. And at that point, I was just like, man, I want to check out anime a lot more. And what I found in anime was a platform that would cater to male gaze and male kind of like mythos and storytelling. The thing that Hollywood I think lacks the most right now is
Women hate anime.
it's Hollywood really lacks an appeal to like mythos, especially like the male mythos. A lot of the men are being as like a figurehead of a leader, or whatever. They're being like written out and subverted by writers to be less appealing, less masculine, less heroic. often in place of person of color, a POC, or a woman or something like that. So
Yeah, I had a in college. I had an Asian roommate who was very into anime, um, and he was very depressed. That's what I remember. Um, he used to be my yeah, my roommate basically. Um,
yeah, I think a lot of
he was
guys
such a nerd.
use it as like
He,
an
I would,
escapism. Yeah.
dude, I would literally walk into my dorm, and he was like laying there with the lights off, in the dark, just laying in his bed, kind of like as a guilt trip kind of thing. So I would ask him, "Hey, dude, are you okay?" Which I would do, because I'm not a monster, you
Hmm.
know. Um, but but yeah, that was a long time ago when I used to go to college in Orlando, Florida. By the way, Judas, you should get an AirPods or something like that. Yeah, because I mean, we can hear you, but it's very noisy. Um, wherever you're talking.
Did you do
Let me, hold on.
Did you do game design by
Let me
chance?
call, I'll call back in.
No, no
Okay.
game, no game design.
I know. Yeah, they got that big game design college in Orlando. I was just
Yeah.
wondering. Yeah.
I'm actually, yeah, it's I'm actually a dropout. I didn't even graduate. So, but I managed to to get into the field, and start working
Yeah.
for like 7 years.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Um,
It's tech. The good thing about tech is it really is one of those fields where it just kind of values competency over most else other things. I've seen people, even people like the bass Pluto. He's a guy who face doxes and then he speaks on BP topics, and he speaks very candid. Explicit. He doesn't hold back. He easily would be canceled, but he can face docs, have a BP channel, and maintain some kind of tech job.
right, right. Who's that? Pluto, you said?
Yeah, the bass Pluto on YouTube. Yeah, he works in tech and
Yeah,
IT.
never heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Just I don't know. It's just I've been listening to a little bit more DBGR, kind of just for entertainment. I don't really think he's, I think someone like Black Pill or Dark Pills with Mercer, he's a lot more of a good channel to go for if you want actual tangible solutions or new ideas, anything to kind of like try to even incrementally progress your just kind of higher level self when it comes to BP and just interfacing with the BP. But DBGR, man, he's like a really good channel to go to if you just want to like cope and just kind of listen to like
Right.
how bad someone else has it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
yeah, I've been listening to just some of him, and
By the way, what's Collective Dismal Telegram? Because I'm searching for Collective Dismal and I can't find a channel with such name.
I don't know, man. That's a good point.
He mentioned it in the previous stream. I don't know what happened. He didn't. I didn't see a comment or anything.
I
But
get.
yeah, put whatever you listen to, just put it in the chat, dude. Because when you say all these names, I mean, I'm not gonna go back and replay the stream just so I can get that handle. So just put it
Mm-hmm.
in one of the chats. And I'll.
So I'm showing the stream right now. There's this guy named Shameless Spurg. He's blowing up kind of like overnight almost. He talks honestly a lot about like cream cheese identity and a lot of those topics. Like he's talking in this one about like the Afrikaners and stuff like that. Um, but I just really want to point out something to you
Hey
guys.
folks, I am the Shameless Berg, and today I want to talk more about the Afrikaner refugee thing since it's an ongoing issue that's just got all the
What's that?
got all the black people on TV
I'm
freaking
trying to
out and
see.
melting
I
down.
think it was
It's
this
got all
one.
the self-hating anti-white race traitors melting down and crying, and it's just great. you mean by it. Like, we know
Maybe it
him.
wasn't this one. I'm gonna find it. But basically, guys, I'll show it to you. But basically, so this guy comes on YouTube 2 weeks ago and just kind of starts like ranting. But the thing that's really weird about him is he has like a Hebrew
Anything.
tattoo on his right wrist, and it's just it's really strange. You just have someone who's face doxing, getting big like we're talking 12,000 subscribers in 2 weeks. And then he has this like Hebrew tattoo. It's just really weird. It's just something I noticed.
Down.
I'm trying to see if I can find it. But if you guys watch enough of his stuff, you can see it's on his right wrist. I think this is his left, unfortunately. He's lifting the cup here. But yeah, I mean, I'll scroll through, try to find it. I've seen it before, but just something I noticed, guys. I don't know if anyone in chat has seen his content. Yeah, gory comments. Shameless Spurg seems like a fed to me. I totally get what you mean, man. It's just kind of weird how he's blown up so fast. It's almost like he's of a chosen group. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. It's just kind of.
When do you become aware of the Jewish question?
That's a good question. For me, what it was
Yeah.
when I was in grad school, and I was kind of like asking like, hey, like why are things why is it so hard to get a job, like those kinds of things. And I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to like blame the Care Bears or anything, but what I did find out is, and I saw this on Based Camp. You can look up Based Camp with Malcolm and Simone, but they talk a lot about. They honestly steal, man, a lot of the Care Bear community, but they are, they do kind of dig a little bit. And one thing that they found when they were digging, they were like, okay, if we take the odds of this many Fortune 500 CEOs being a Care Bear, the odds of this many people in government being a Care Bear and stuff like that, and we just assume like, okay, we take the Care Bear population of the United States, which is what, like 2%, and we apply it to these positions of power, and we assume, okay, they should have what, like a 2% representation in these fields, right? So 2% of the population, 2% representation in these high up fields. But it wasn't the case at all. The representation is closer to like 20 to 30%. And then so they ran the stats on that. So, like, what is the statistical outcome of this just being a, what is the statistical odds of this just being a just so happens to be kind of outcome? And the odds of that were like, we're like 1,000,000,000 basically, or like even probably worse than that. So there is maybe something to be said about like nepotism in that community, or maybe just kind of like, well, okay, I'll even say this, right? If you have a community where 13% of it is responsible for 50% of the crime, right? Thinking about like Carmelo culture or something here, right? I guess the inverse of that, you could make an argument, would be like hyper successful, which is what we kind of see with like the Care Bears. But my issue with that is I just don't know if that's entirely just a merit based thing. You've heard about like the Asian helicopter parents, the Asians working really hard. I kind of lean into the theory of there might be like a nepotism question there or something. There definitely is something going on where it's like it's just weird to me that people, this is a topic you can't just talk about. We have freedom of speech and
Yeah.
everything like that, and it's just weird how, anyone just talking about this stuff is met with very, very, hostility. You saw like Ye's bank accounts got frozen. I mean, there's
Right.
countless
Right.
examples. So, I mean, it is strange, yeah.
Leather Apron channel. That's a pretty good channel, and he goes over he goes over the statistics of how Jews are overrepresented in so many different areas in lives. And yeah, and he keeps it pretty clean too. So he actually has a YouTube channel. I'm sure some people have heard his of this guy. And yes, of course, he was criticized. big time by the mainstream. Um,
What do you say his channel was? Something apron.
le- leather apron channel. Leather apron. What? Hold on, let me look it up.
All right. Yeah, just let me know when you got it. MH writes, Thomas only has 1.7K subs. I think Thomas' views are nerfed by YouTube. I think his views are really 10 or even 20x. Thomas is very influential. Yeah, I get what you mean. I mean, the thing that's crazy about Thomas is 1.7K subs, but any given stream, he's going to have well over 150 people in it. I mean, that's unheard of, that kind of participation. When you kind of like pull out the ratio of it, you know, I know someone like Candace Owens, when she streams, she'll have what, like 35K, but she has, millions and millions of followers. So when you think about it, Thomas actually has an even more dedicated
Yeah,
following, kind of.
she gets so much more reach than any white man alive, which is ridiculous. Like she kind of has become a de facto leader in the white men's plight. Which is, I think, says a lot. Because when an actual white man tries to do the same, he gets shut down. He just can't do it. it um, oh, by the way, it's Leather Apron Club. Um, the Leather Apron Club. Yep, I posted a link in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just check this in. Check this out.
There was an episode where he does the guests on the Joe Rogan podcast, and that was pretty good. I think that's the one that made him famous on YouTube, where he analyzes all the guests that Joe Rogan was having on his show. And yeah, and of course there is a big pattern, and you can take a wild guess what that pattern is.
Right.
But as far as nepotism, yeah, I'm sure that goes on. There's quite a bit of that. But at the end of the day, there's not that many of them. And I would be more concerned about other groups, that are tied to them. Like the quote unquote secret societies, right?
Right.
That's and there's a lot of them. There's millions of there's millions of them. And these are the ones that will take your opportunities and your jobs and whatever. In my opinion, and it happens in all countries, right? Not just in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it really sucks, because they tell you, oh, you have to network, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course we have to network, but I'm not going to be able to network like this ancient secret society that has been networking for
Yeah.
For the past hundreds of years, and they got everything tied up. So what? I'm going to join a cult just so I can get ahead in life.
Yeah.
Is that the only way? Can I just work hard and just get a little slice of something?
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not really, I kind of actually like talking to people like Judas or Honest Goy and stuff like that. But because the thing is, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think that this is like a good idea to be like, oh, I openly hate all Care Bears or whatever. Like, I think that's just I just don't. Well, you consider like they've been around for thousands of years. You probably aren't going to be able to get rid of them or anything, right? But I think there are interesting people in that group to talk to and stuff. And I actually think the far majority of them are probably like decent people. I don't think they're particularly part of a direct plot. They might unconsciously, be feeding some
Right.
agenda or some, they go to they're probably fed their own narratives by Hollywood and their own synagogue or their community or whatever. But I don't think they're consciously. I don't think the majority of them are like consciously plotting. But I do agree with you. I think there is like a subsect elite, and I think that's where things like what I was talking about. How why is the representation in government and these high up Fortune 500 positions so high? where it's like I think there is some elitism going on, some like behind the scenes kind of like you were saying, like skull and bone societies or all these
Right.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's layered, right? It goes in layers, right? And most people never get above a certain level. And I think after you go after a certain level, it's like literally you're giving your soul to something, you know. Um, and I don't know if people are spiritual, but I mean, if you believe in the after, if you believe in a spiritual realm, you know, and you believe in hell and heaven, and you know, and you're a Christian, then
Hmm.
you should be very concerned about, you know, participating in such schemes. But I don't know. I really don't know what to think about it, right? Because at the end of the day, you should be allowed to network, right? But it's it's all about the occult for these people, right? Like they do things out in the open, but it's complete, it's coded, right? It's not like most the masses do not understand what they're doing, right? Because everything is coded, so they only know how to decode it, you know, and they can get away with doing stuff on right on the open. And it seems like I don't know if you've heard of the Theosophical Society and Alice Bailey, you know, and the whole New Age movement and how they, you know, they're going to externalize the hierarchy. I think that's what we're undergoing now,
Hmm.
where they're making, you know, witchcraft popular. They're making, you know, they're
Right.
basically externalizing everything that's that they've been doing. They're making it public, you know, and they're slowly letting people in and trying to get normie people like us, you know, buy into it, you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that we just accept it.
Yeah,
I
the
think that's
rise of
what we're doing.
witchcraft and stuff like that, that these, you know, even just like a normie girl on TikTok and stuff is practicing is terrifying. And it really feeds into that
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
you know, I think we are in like
dude.
a time of spiritual warfare. Where like a guy like you or me, when we go out in public and we just maybe we're forced to interact with some of these witchcraft practicing women, whether it's like at a Starbucks or wherever it might be. You know, they can just feed you like this mean look. Like I think it's almost like a spiritual thing where they just know that we're like enemies. You know?
Yeah, they do a lot of microaggressions, you know,
Right.
and somehow they're very well connected. And I swear to God, like, and this is where the whole gang stalking phenomena comes into play for me, at least in my life. You know, it's like they have insider information on my life somehow, you know, and I don't know how they do this, right? It's like they're communicating you know, it's like they have a big social group, you know, a private group where they all communicate. And you know, I go to a gas station, I go to a 7-Eleven, and you know, she does something that really annoys me, and somehow she knows that this really thing, like for example, you know, she she would ask me for ID, even though I mean, and I understand that, like, you know, clerks do that, but I know that that particular gas station doesn't do it, right? So, but for me, she would always ask me for ID when I would buy cigarettes, right? And this one, and I even saw an illegal guy come in there and buy stuff, buy cigarettes, and she didn't ask him for it. You know, it was only me. I was able to see. I saw that, and she wanted me to see that just so I would get mad. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like she literally wanted me to see wanted me to see her giving this illegal guy the cigarettes without an ID, and then when I came up to her, she would, oh no, yeah, I can't sell it to you. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
just little stuff like that, and it's just really annoying, man.
Yeah, I think there's people,
But yeah,
especially like white
yeah,
people. People like to try and test these guys' patience. You know, like there, I do believe now in like things like demoralization agents and stuff like that.
right. Yeah, even when I was younger, man, I remember I read uh 3 Harry Potter books, and I didn't even speak good English. Okay, so I wasn't really comprehending, you know, that much of. For me, it was more like, but yeah, that's what the school, you know. was encouraging at the time. So I started, and my cousin, who I basically grew up with for like a year, that's what he was reading, and that's what I picked up on, and I started reading Harry Potter, right? Um, but I guess luckily for me, right, I wasn't really comprehending it in a very deep level because the English, I was very new to the English language, right? And by the way, I'm Hispanic. I don't know if you know that, but I'm white, you know.
Right, right,
Um, yeah, because most Hispanics are they're mixed race.
right.
Unless you go to Argentina,
Mm-hmm.
Argentina is pretty white. But other than that, most Latin American countries are pretty mixed, whether
Mm-hmm.
it be with blacks or with Native Americans.
Yeah.
They're pretty mixed. In my home country, there's like there's even different names for it. Like there's mulattoes, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's grifos, you know, and then there is criollos, right? So
Mm-hmm.
those are the three type of mix depending on which race. But it's kind of like a taboo, right? And they just like to think of them as their nationality, right? Because people get uncomfortable talking about race. Yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of these wig nats and stuff like that, the people who are like if she, if my girl is not, a cream cheese girl, I don't want her, and those kinds of people, and it comes from like it's one of those things, obviously, right, where it's like, a Carmelo guy wants to marry a Carmelo girl, and no one has an issue with that. In fact, it's actually empowered, right? It's like, okay, they don't want to race. Carmelo doesn't want to race mix. Like, you're empowered. But obviously, there's that whole double standard where as soon as it's a guy who's cream cheese, and then he's like, hey, I want my kid to look like me. Oh, you're a racist. You're a colorist, whatever. But the thing is, though, about these guys who are genuinely just want to have their kid look like them. And I don't blame guys who have given up on dating Becky, like, especially here in the West, like, trying to date these cream cheese women, trying to date Becky, man. It's a whole different degree of frustration. And, if you're JBW, but you don't want a race mix, man, you're going to have to play at, like, slightly higher difficulty. And so the thing about like
yeah,
these Wignat, Inkwell kind of guys is I don't think they realize that if they considered, like, I hate to be, little race mixer here, the like trying to, I'm not really trying to push an agenda, guys, but just consider the idea that these Latino women, in the continents or countries just south of you guys in the United States or whatever, or even you go to a place like Texas or whatever, they're super, they have super high European heritage genetics, stuff like that. So it
right.
truly, truly believe that is like the next best thing if you're just like giving up on Becky and you're one of these guys who, a Becky supremacist or whatever. Go talk to Maria. Go try your luck out with Maria for real.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because, as you know, women are hypergamous, and typically the average Western man, has more income, and that will be very attractive to them. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and Mage writes, trying to date your race match, looks match, and social stats match as a cream cheese guy in 2025 is very difficult. Yeah, that's very true, man. I was on a another sushi date today with this Asian chick. It's like the 2025 looks match, man. She's like a, I don't know, like a 6 out of 10. She's not like super attractive, but she's also not ugly at all. We were going out, we were doing some like rock climbing. She was pretty fit, and I was pretty impressed with what she was able to do and stuff. But it's like just physiognomy and stuff. It's not ugly, but it's also not super attractive. And then you consider like this is just the looks match now. Is you got this like kind of tall, normal face looking white guy, and then you just pair up with like a normal, 5, 6 out of 10 Asian girl, and that's like the looks match in 2025. And because it's like I'm the result of a corrupted marketplace is kind of how I feel it, or that's how I sense it, right? Where it's like,
yeah,
it's like, okay, the market has kind of like shown me like, okay, if you did want to go on dates, this is who you could go on dates with. Which is just, that's just the BP. It's like a dark capsule. It's a dark capsule I've been fed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know.
You
I mean, this sushi date, I don't think it went super well, man. It was kind of awkward. I don't know. It was the second date. I don't know if there'll be a third, but I'm not really. I was kind of just I was just kind of I wasn't on my game really. I was just kind of being myself, seeing if the tism will scare this girl away this time. Only time will tell. I'd say it's like a 50-50 chance that she even texts me again.
Wait, she's Asian?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Where like Japanese, Chinese, what kind of Asian?
Honestly, dog, one of them like Canadian Asian girls, so probably Chinese. Not certain though.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them girls coming in from Canada. But yeah, that's another crazy thing too, man. We probably got all these Canadians getting visas and coming to work here. Just maybe they get hired for less or whatever because they're not citizens. That's I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the import infinity Indians argument, but that's
The
a
what
whole.
argument?
So
Import?
here in the U.S., there was like soon after Trump got in, um, there was this guy on his like he's supposed to be on his board named Vivek Ramaswamy, and he was talking about, we need to expand the H-1B visa program. And the H-1B visa program is kind of like a brutal program because what it allows someone to do is, okay, if you have like a 60K a year IT help desk job, right?
Mm-hmm.
You bring in this dude from India who went to, the Delhi Institute of Technology or whatever, and the company's like, okay, hey, we'll sponsor Vikram for this job. So we give Vikram the green card. But the thing is, like, they're allowed to pay Vikram 40K for that role. Like, they're allowed to pay him like significantly
Oh
less,
wow.
yeah,
I
than
didn't
what
know it
what a
was
U.S.
that.
citizen would make.
So yeah,
So,
it's
yeah, so these companies, because they're gonna have better bottom lines when they pull guys like Vikram from the Institute of Technology at Delhi or whatever. Like, they just keep doing it. So it's almost like there's this huge thing going on in the I guess the right, like the whole right political sphere right now, where it's like, hey man, we can't be importing Infinity Indians into the U.S.
right. So they pay him like an Indian salary? That's insane. I thought they would, and they don't, I guess, I mean, but they have to move here, right? I mean, they have to work here. There is not remote jobs. Well, I guess it
Yeah,
depends, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah,
But
you're right. They do got to move here, but oftentimes like these companies are kind of willing, that pay difference that they're not giving them. Sometimes these companies will be like, hey, here's your relocation bonus, or they
yeah,
have like I've even heard of like some of these companies, especially like Google and stuff. They have like housing ready for these people. You know,
right, right. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
but
Like in the whole technology field, like Indians are very well represented,
yeah,
all over the place.
yeah.
Just like Asians,
I wouldn't say like obviously there's exceptions to the rule, right? But I wouldn't say they're the
Yeah,
most like they don't have the most ingenuity, but they're maybe good at obviously they're good at filling seats, right? But then the other thing too is like they're good at maybe being able to kind of like pair it and do a role kind of robotically, but they might not have like a
yeah,
ton of ingenuity that you'd associate with like a senior cybersecurity analyst or whatever, like a high quality one or whatever.
right, right.
Yeah, MH is right. Vivek shot himself in the foot promoting Curry H-1B visa over disenfranchised and disgruntled cream cheese male workforce. Yeah, it's really about like this Politico commentator on the right of here on YouTube. I think he's really interesting. Named John Doyle. He's kind of like, honestly, John Doyle is like a diet Nick Fuentes. He says a lot of the same things, but I think Doyle maybe has a bit more of a uncancelable rhetoric to him. Like he's a bit more. he'll say like, hey, we have a problem with the Care Bears, we have a problem with the gays, we have a problem with just women in general. And he'll have say the same things that Fuentes does, but he does it in a lot more of an uncancelable rhetoric. But he has this saying that was really interesting, where it's like, the forgotten gamers of America, and I feel like that's like something I can't like unsee now, where it's like what MH said. We got all these, we're importing Infinity Indians because we can pay them 60% of what we'd pay a U.S. citizen to do like the same job. But the problem is, it's just like, we can't keep doing that. The O1 visa is different from the H1B, and the O1 visa is a lot less corruptible. So the O1 visa is like specific. It's not like you can just hire IT help desk or hire 7-Eleven clerks. The O1 visa is actually for like specialized work, and it actually, you can't like undercut pay or whatever. It's a lot less of a corrupted system. So something like that should be expanded.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the H1B talk is just kind of Elon Musk and Vivek. Vivek runs biotech companies. Elon Musk runs Tesla, SpaceX, all this stuff. So it's like they have incentives, and Mercer talks about this on his videos, where it's like they have incentives to definitely cut their bottom line so they can make more money in the long run. So, if they can,
I
if they can get a guy paid $40K for the help desk job, that is supposed to be going $60K to a U.S. Citizen, and they get 95% of the productivity, or even 90% of the productivity that would come out of that, they're definitely going to do that.
right. So now that you mentioned Vivek, the first time I heard of this guy was listening to another Indian guy called Shiva. Shiva, I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's a big protester. I actually like him, because he was, I actually met him, in Massachusetts. I went to one of his protests and even took a picture with him and everything. And he's an Indian guy, who was very poor, and he went to MIT and became, he, well, he says, and he has proof, and I kind of believe him, but I don't know because I haven't really researched his case, that he was the inventor of email. um, and I think I mean, there's some truth to that, And yes, but the reason he caught my attention was because he was criticizing the COVID hoax, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he was very, very, very vocal about it, um, but yeah, he really hates Vivek. Oh my God, you have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever he talks about him, he curses like every other, every minute. He has to say a curse words whenever he talks about him. Um, yeah, because the Indians, they're very fragmented with their whole caste system.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is a reality there to this day. I mean, it's very
Right.
real. I don't know if you know the Untouchables and whatever.
Yeah, and I know the
Um,
Untouchables are towards the bottom and the Brahmin are towards the top. That's what I know.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, but that's a real thing, dude. Like in India, these people are like segregated, they know where they come from where they live, right? They're like
Mm-hmm.
uh it's like Jim Crow law for Indians.
It's
Uh
interesting society. I know that complexion is like a huge status symbol over there. Like you actually need like a lighter complexion to be associated with like higher beauty, higher status. Um, I've heard so far, as much as I have kind of like darker skinned Indian friends, and
yeah.
it for whatever reason, like their sisters, his sisters would just have lighter complexion than him, like just slightly, but noticeable. And he'd have like these aunties and extended family trying to give him like ointments and stuff to get his complexion lighter, because it's just so much of a
Right, right.
virtue over there.
Yeah, I honestly, dude, I think that's the case everywhere. Like
Yeah,
because
definitely in
I'm
Asian
Dominican,
societies.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm Dominican, right? It's very, very, most people are brown there. And yes, dude, like some of the women, like they kind of want to look whiter. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they would never admit it, but they do because they put all these makeup that make him look whiter than they actually are. Um, and And I think it's, yeah, because you know, the elite in Dominican Republic, they're mostly white. You know, like the
Mm-hmm.
rich people are mostly white. They're probably Jewish, you know, or you know, or Sephardic Jews, you know, not Ashkenazi
Mm-hmm.
Jews. Um, but nevertheless are Jewish. Um, and but yeah, like the and and I don't think they will ever admit it, you know. And they have like this whole. Here's the thing, like in Dominican Republic, right? You know, we have this neighboring country called Haiti, and they're even darker, right?
Right.
So as far as Dominicans are concerned, they're kind of like the white in the island, right? They're the
Right.
white people in the island. Because yeah, this neighboring country is 100% black, like very, very dark. And it's true, like they're darker than the average Dominican, right? Because the average Dominican is brown, you know, they look brown. Um, but um but yeah, and I've noticed that, you know, like the woman, and there was even this famous baseball player, Sammy Sosa. You know, I think he was he literally did something to his skin, dude, where he was like turning
Right.
white, like
Yeah.
Michael Jackson or something. What was the thing with Michael Jackson? What was that? Was that an actual like?
I don't know.
Was he actually trying to become
Yeah, I mean,
like
obviously,
what's up with that?
I
Yeah,
saw something similar, like so obviously something similar with Sammy Sosa, right? Where it's just like their complexion is just almost artificially being turned up by like surgery, or I don't know what it is. Um,
right,
but
right.
yeah, it's strange, man. I couldn't tell you for sure what it is with Michael or Sammy Sosa, but I know exactly what you're talking about. This is brutal. This is a comment from MH. MH writes, McKinsey Consulting pays their junior associate JEET employees in India 35K USD about. They have to pay the same junior employees in USA 120K minimum. Man.
Ouch.
But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that, with how everything's gone remote and the kind of like globalist agenda and all that. I could definitely see them going to like one of these, because these are good schools. I will say that. Like you go to India, anyone who gets into those like super, 1% acceptance rate academies, even if it is India, I think there's something about that person. I get the whole, you know, but it's Indians or whatever argument, but it's like still you got a guy getting
Well,
into a like 1% acceptance rate school. So it's like not like
yeah,
these guys, who are taking our jobs are idiots, but it's just it's just we can't have any kind of isolationist economy. um we can't have what like the Swiss have, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just we can't have any kind of economic identity ourselves. Everything has to be
right.
globalized.
Yeah, one thing you have to factor in when you look at these salaries, you know, like the 35K and the 120K, um, you have to factor in the cost of living, right? Because there's a
Right.
massive difference, right? Like for you to survive in the United States, you
Yeah.
need, you know, is a big difference. You know, I'll show you a quick example, right? I can get a haircut in Dominican Republic for like $5 or less.
Hmm.
You know, here I have to pay like $30.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
have to tip him some too. You know, and yeah, it's a massive difference. You know, well, and it depends too. Like services are typically way cheaper. You know,
Hmm.
but if you want to get like consumer goods, then yeah, you are out of luck, right? You don't like buying cars is very expensive in third world countries. You know, they put these
Right.
ridiculous taxes. You know, so it's actually very difficult to get your hands on a car. But but as far as services, you know, they're typically very, very cheap, you know, and that's what and you know, the food also is cheaper, you know, there's a lot less variety, but you can survive with a lot less money. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, you pointed out something interesting about how I think it definitely in these places the needs and the necessities like your rent, your food generally, what's in the grocery store, that's all cheaper. But there are going to be some select luxuries that we're kind of accustomed to that are going to be significantly more expensive in these other places. Like you were saying, like certain cars, definitely like iPhones, those kinds of things. An iPhone's gonna
Oh
definitely
yeah,
cost more in Argentina than it would in U.S. So
yeah. Apple products, dude, is a complete premium. I mean, only like well-off people, you know. I think even here in the States, it's a little premium here, but in like
hmm
third world countries, it's like very premium. And I have an iPhone, and I went to buy a charger in an electronic store in the Dominican Republic, and they were laughing at me
right,
because I was paying so much for the cable. Like the guy who was selling me the cable, he was laughing at my face,
damn.
telling me like I'm stupid or something for paying so much for this Apple cable, you know. And I felt a little stupid, but I'm like, what can I say?
Yeah, you need to charge your phone though.
I
Yeah,
guess I need the damn charger. Yeah, I need the cable, you know.
yeah.
Um,
I've been there, man. I've had to buy a charger at the airport, man. I kind of get what you mean. Yeah,
is
they
a ripoff
yeah
for
they
sure.
they
Yeah.
jack that stuff up because they know you need it. Yeah. Um. Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's kind of it's tough, man, because it does feel like we're kind of like running out of copes here. And the kind of stuff we talk about, it does feel like it's feeding into like our job prospects, our life prospects. I think something a lot of people are kind of conscious about, I know myself especially, is like that idea of like, can I do as well as my parents, if not slightly better? And I feel like it's just that's getting away from all of us, you know?
Yeah, dude, I think that's what's really depressing, dude, because we can see our parents, we can see, you know,
Mm-hmm.
our own family, and they didn't have it as bad as we had it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh then that's where the boomer hate is coming from, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can see it in my own family, dude. Like these people, and they were lucky. I don't know if this was the case in the States too, but at least, you know, where I come from, okay, they were in a transitional period where, you know, all the agricultural land was being shifted away to everybody was moving to the cities,
Right.
right? And that was a key moment, right? Because that means they inherited all these fucking land, you know, which they cashed out. They you know they made um they had a massive start on life.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas me, you know, when I got out of college, you know, when I dropped out, you know, I had literally nothing. I had just debts, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that wasn't the case for all most of my, you know, boomer family, extended family, you know, because I have a lot of uncles and aunts, and it really sucks, man. Um and they brought me here, you know, my parents brought me here when I was like fucking 16, or yeah, 16 or 17, right when I was about to graduate from high school, dude. They didn't even
Yeah.
let me finish high school in my home country, which honestly that was a little devastating for me,
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, it's just for you to be transplanted into a completely different culture, you know, where the primary language is something completely different. It is a big change, especially at that pivotal point in your life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you're going through puberty. That's pretty much what high school corresponds to, when most kids are going undergoing puberty, you know. So you're the fucking thinking about girls all the freaking time. Um, And yeah, at that key moment, you know, oh no, yeah, we're gonna move. Like half through my school year, dude, I didn't even finish the school year. You know, I had to finish in, well, yeah, I finished early. I took all the finals before everybody else, you know, and then I moved and like miss a half of the school year altogether, only to start in the States, you know, um, do a big reset. Um, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's like one thing that's been a huge issue with the boomers is that whole boomers kind of treat people, even their own kids to some degree, like they're just these interoperable, replaceable parts, you know. Um, they think that, oh, we can just pick up and move to this other school, and or we could just oh, I'm kind of tired of paying 60K a year for my help desk IT Johns and my help desk IT Jacobs, and Susans. So let's get Vivek in here. Let's get Vikram in here, and like all
Cool.
Pajit. Yeah. So it's just I feel like that's just the boomer kind of thing. They just kind of think people are just these interoperable, interchangeable parts, and it's just not true. You know.
Yeah,
So
they're and some of the worst boomers, dude, they go. It's like they're in a competition with their own kids, man.
yeah,
Like they want to outdo their kids, they
yeah,
want to like, and they really think they're like truly special, like these special group of people because of their music and all the Beatles and all this stuff
right.
and everything, and that they're real men and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, we inherited all this shit from you guys,
Mm-hmm.
you know and yeah, dude, and the how and the housing market, things went, and they were the ones that brought the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
They made feminism. I don't know how many waves of feminism, they started,
Yeah, I think we're
under
on
the boomers.
4. I don't know though. We're on 4 too many, man.
Yeah, man. And of course I think we people in the stream know the root cause, but I guess, the boomers had a better chance, to to make a change, and they didn't, and now uh it's a lot more difficult for the next generations to do anything about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when the boomers are still in power, right? I think to this day they hold most
Right, right, right.
political
Yep, yep. And I
so
think
they're still in power, and I like what Western Decline said in one of the stream, like, yeah, dude, like the Jews, they're gonna keep the boomers until the very bitter end, dude. They're gonna keep them in there
mm-hmm.
because, yeah, these people are, like, they watch the mainstream like is a the gospel, um and with all the evangelical Christians, in
Mm-hmm.
America. Um, so yeah, they're gonna keep him onto the bitter end.
Yeah, because the boomers are the ones who drank the Kool-Aid of, the Care Bear Kool-Aid the most out of anyone. The whole people are interoperable parts, we need more quote unquote diversity. They drank the Kool-Aid the most.
Yeah, man. Dude,
Also the Holocaust. They're
yeah,
the ones about, World War II history, they believe the school narrative the most, you know.
right, right. Like, I bet you if you would do a cohort analysis, and see which generation is more likely to believe conspiracy theories, quote unquote theories, right? I bet you millennials and the younger generations are going to be at the top, right? Whereas boomers are going to be very, very, kosher in so many different ways. But one thing, and I said this a while back in Western stream, the boomers were the generation that had the highest rate of circumcision. They circumcised the highest number of
Yeah.
their offsprings, by far, dude, like 80%. It's like they're Jewish, they're basically Jewish, um, and that, dude, that is very, very unique to America,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like no other first world country has the rates that America has.
I figured part of
Like,
this out. What it is these people are pushing this, and there might be a half truth to it, but it's like I guess the idea is that if you get circumcised, you're at a slightly less risk of certain STDs or certain like infections. So these like
yeah,
doctors, yeah, these doctors,
it's all
yeah,
bullshit.
these
Yeah,
doc, and
but go ahead.
that's what kind of happened to me, right? Was like my parents and stuff were being pushed this idea from their doctor at the time, during the childbirth and stuff, where it's like, hey, he'd be at a lower risk of this or that if you got him circumcised, blah blah blah, and it's kind of just I don't know, man. To me, it's I you know I think it's one of the most cruelest things out there in our culture. The fact you're doing that to a helpless baby child. I think even more cruel is if you listen to Chinese historian. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but he went through like adult circumcision, and I think that's even more hellish to think about.
Well, I mean, if you're an adult and you're dumb enough to do it, I mean, then that's your problem, right? But what is really egregious is to do it to newborns, right? Where they don't
Yeah,
get to choose.
yeah,
That's where it's really egregious, and they don't even know what a foreskin is. They never had it, right? They never have conscious awareness of a part of their penis, which is actually very important. You know, I think I don't know if you've seen Eric Eric Klopper.
no, I don't think I have.
Dude, oh yeah, well, and just FYI, he's Jewish, but he exposes what circumcision really is. I think that's the best expose you can possibly imagine on circumcision. He did a presentation at Harvard University, and yeah, he got kicked out of Harvard for it. Um, but you should, and of course you can't watch it because it's pretty much like an hour long, presentation,
What's his
and then he
what's his
breaks
last
all the
name?
myth.
Can you spell out his last name?
Klopper, Clopper. I'll spell it in the
All
chat.
right.
Yeah, and dude, and he gets enraged, dude, in the whole presentation. It is very, very dramatic, like the way he presents it. And of course, I guess because he's Jewish, right? He can kind of
Right.
talk about it
Right.
more freely than the average person, even though it shouldn't be like that, right? Because I mean, whether you're Jewish or not, right? This surgery was done to so many people, and it shouldn't matter whether you're Jewish or not. And you should be able to talk about it.
I don't know how true
Um,
this is, but I heard in the Care Bear culture kind of thing where I don't know like who all gets the actual circumcision, but I know like one group who I think was supposed to get it were like like a group of slaves.
the eunuchs. I mean, in Middle Ages, they had eunuchs, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
castrated slaves.
yeah.
The Arabs would do that to the people they conquer. They would castrate them. Of course, circumcision is not castration, but that's like an upgrade, from getting castrated, in my opinion. Is a slave
Yeah.
technology, is a slave management technology to handle slaves, and that's why it's so wrong, and it's so weird that this country, is so big on it. The only, I guess, developed country, another is South Korea, dude. South Korea is another country where it's big there,
Hmm.
and it only started happening after they became, tightly coupled to the United States, and they became Judaized, right? And of course, it's not a coincidence that these people always bring these practices with them. Um, I remember when I was talking to Western, we talked about this, and he said he thought that Canadians had a higher rate. I'm like, no, bro. Canadians, they have like 20-30%, not even Canadians. I mean, it's pretty high, don't get me wrong, because 30% of Canadians are not Jewish or Arabs, and they still do it. They were still tricked into doing it.
Yeah.
Scars aren't necessary.
But it's not as high as in America. America is like 60%. In the boomer times, it was 80%. So at least it's slowly going down. Because people are realizing that it's completely. I think the information age has made people aware of these things, right? I guess it was easier for them to keep things in check, right? Because information, could only flow a certain way, but that's truly not the case anymore, right? The internet is completely decentralized, so it's hard to keep people from talking and exposing things.
Right.
Yeah.
Removed in the
I mean,
United States without consent
yeah.
and without medical need. At this conference,
It's,
we will confront the reality of circumcision. And
Yeah,
synchronize
eunuchs.
our
You've heard of that term before?
Yeah.
Eunuch?
I think
Eunuch?
eunuch. We say
Eunuch.
yeah, eunuch is what I've heard it pronounced as, but I knew what you were talking about. I don't know if I don't know. They words are weird, man. They sometimes say it differently in different places of the world. I don't know if they.
No, dude. Yeah, English, dude. that's been my struggle with English since the very beginning, dude. Like
Right.
it doesn't have consistent pronunciation of words. And that's one of the nice things about Spanish, dude. When like a vowel and a consonant combine in Spanish, they always sound the same, you know. It doesn't matter which word it is, you know, the pronunciation is very, very consistent, right? So that you once you know how to sound certain words, you don't have to like learn different variations of it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but eventually, yeah, you hear so much English that you start kind of memorizing everything, right? And now I see myself thinking, being like an English thinker, right? Because I've been
Mm-hmm.
here for so long, and because of what I work, and you know, everything is in English, that my brain is completely like shifted to being more of an English
Mm-hmm.
kind of brain, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, man, I
Yeah.
watched this really good video recently. It was Wyatt Stagg, Gran Torino. Have you seen this movie, Gran Torino? Are you familiar with this at all?
Gran Torino, no.
Yeah,
What is that?
I would recommend people take a look at this video. I'm showing it here on stream. It's Gran Torino and the subversion of heroism. And so basically the movie Gran Torino, it's about this kind of old fart played by this really legendary actor. I'm pretty sure he's Clint Eastwood. And he's like this old, cream cheese fart. He grows up in, I think, Hyde Park, Detroit. So it's a place that was once obviously a great city. Crazy auto industry, majority cream cheese, and it's obviously way different now. There's a ton of uh, people of color, and obviously the auto industry is gone, so the whole job market, and there's a lot more gang violence. So basically this guy's about to die. He's dealing with cancer, and then he has like this family, extended family. It's not like he's doesn't have heirs or whatever, but they're kind of like, it portrays them as super, brain fried. Like the daughter is just kind of like calling her friends, just cares about how she looks. She doesn't really like talk or interface with her granddad, the old fart, Clint Eastwood. And same thing with the son. Or the little nephew or whatever. He's kind of being a little shit, and he just kind of cares about trying to inherit this old guy's like Gran Torino. And Gran Torino, it's like an old style car. It's probably worth like over 20 grand today if it's kept in like good condition. It's just one of those, them like 1950s
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. They kind of keep value to some degree, if they're not being driven around and stuff. So, basically in the movie, like, because of a gang initiation, this little Vietnamese kid or whatever who lives next to him tries to like steal his Gran Torino, and the old fart catches him and like holds him at shotgun point, like he's about to blow this little like 4 foot
Yeah.
tall Vietnamese boy's head off, right? And he ends up
Right.
he kind of recognizes him. I guess he decided against it. Just tells him like, yeah, just remember like you almost died today or whatever. And then the family comes up and they apologize. They're like, oh no, this is not what we did. This is not like our culture, like. And so basically the rest of the movie's about this guy kind of just he's like, oh, this is how I became like not a racist old piece of shit, and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the sad thing
I
is,
can relate.
and spoiler alert here, guys, at this point, the sad thing is though, he ends the movie by like, he kind of like makes himself a martyr to kind of like, so he purposely, he has cancer, he knows he's gonna die, so he purposely allows himself to be gunned down by like the neighborhood gangs to kind of like make himself a martyr so the police can like step in. So that's kind of shitty. But the shittier thing is like, he doesn't leave his kids anything, I don't think. So he gives the Gran Torino to that little Vietnamese boy. But his actual like biological blood gets nothing. The girl, his like niece, his nephew, or his grandkids, whatever they are. There's like a
Right.
scene where they're doing like they're reading off the list of heirs, or the will and testament of this guy, and nothing goes to the actual cream cheese family. So I think that was what was interesting point that Wyatt Stagg made, where it's kind of like Hollywood, the powers that be, the media complex, they're trying to like broadcast this message about, like, don't leave your cream cheese people resources, don't leave your cream cheese family resources. um
Sorry, what do you mean by cream cheese? You said
White.
that many times, and
Yeah,
it's
white.
actually going over
Yeah,
my head.
when I say cream cheese, I just mean white. I just don't want to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say the YT word too much because YouTube tracks
Yeah.
patterns, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm showing it here on stream. There's basically like this scene, like you see the little niece or nephew, and she's this is them at the last will and testament, and she's all like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to," she's very visibly, like, they are portrayed as like pieces of shit. But and that is true to some degree, right? I think something like 8 to 10% of all Gen Z women are on OF, lonely fans, as content creators. So I understand that whole thing about, like, the narrative the movie's trying to push about, like, the generations are kind of pieces of shit, especially like this idea that, like, the white youths. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's just fried. And it's just the thing that messes me up is I like these movies. Like, when I was like a college freshman and I watched a movie like this, like, I was like, oh, that was a pretty cool movie. And it's like what Western said about the 28 Days Later, where it's like, this is dangerous because it's like I didn't catch on to the subversion right away.
Yeah, dude, I watched that movie and I actually liked it, because the music is very enticing, but it has so many coded messages that I would have never realized, right? Unless you watch that analysis, and dude, uh, obviously most Hollywood films are filled with this kind of stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, completely. I mean, it's just that there's so much of it, and now that, at least that is the case for me, right? Now that I'm more conscious about what's really going on in the world, now I can see it a lot better,
Right.
right? But when I was younger, dude, nah, man, it was just completely random to me.
Yeah,
So
but
I was just
to be
absorbing
fair,
all
man,
this.
it was more
Yeah.
intelligent. Like, the coding was more intelligent. Like, it was more discreet. Like I was saying,
Yeah.
somewhere around the lockdowns and stuff, they just went full on. They had Biden in office. They had Kamala as VP. They went full on loud with it. But you know, before 2010, like Gran Torino, I think it's like a 2008 movie. 28 Days Later, I think it's like a 2003 movie. These were very intelligent movies for trying to pull the subversion they pulled. When kind of, you almost got to give your hats off to your enemy.
28 days later. There was one that was very enraging to me once I saw it. I mean, it was mostly a female film, but it was very clear to me that they were just coaching white women, dude, in it, like literally coaching white women on so many different things,
Mhm.
and it was made by this feminist Jewish woman.
Can you find the name of the movie?
What is it? It's just enraging, dude. Let me see if I remember. Orange is the New Black. That it's not. That's not the, because I know that's a series, but the same director of that movie, she also made another movie, which I'm trying to remember.
Okay.
Which is about weeds, right? Weeds.
Okay,
Let
is
me
that
see.
a show or a movie? Because I think there was a
I
show
think
called
it
Weeds.
might be a show. Yeah, weeds. Let me see.
Yeah, Weeds. I think I haven't seen it, but I think that's about like a roasty mom starts selling weed or something like that.
No, dude, like they're literally coaching women on circumcision, dude, like on how to basically minimizing what it truly is, and they even have a bris milah, ceremony,
Mm-hmm.
and they like sugarcoat the whole thing, right? They make as if like that was, it's a really more horrible than what they make, they sugarcoat it. And then one of the rabbis says, one of the kids asks him, "Oh, like, do you do this for a living?" And he says, "Yeah, I practice on goyim,"
Oh
and
shit!
it's like a joke. Yeah.
Damn.
Um, And then the guy, and I think the part that's kind of enraging is like there is a guy trying to get a woman back, and I suppose that the man who stole his woman was a Jewish man,
Mm-hmm.
and he circumcised the other men's as kids. And he's completely mad about it. And yeah, the whole movie is about like basically making it acceptable for women to do this shit and making it cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so disgusting, man.
Yeah, dude. It's hard to just I don't know, man, cuz it's like one of the only things that we've kind of had is like, we can have like a really awesome badass video game that like caters to men, or like we could have an anime that caters to men, but obviously they're coming for this stuff too, because they don't want a media that actually like gives guys what they want or tells guys what they want to hear, like, hey, you can be heroic, you can, like, I don't know, like I just feel like there's a reason why they're not making any like Rocky movies anymore. Maybe they'll do like
Right.
Creed and they'll bring like Michael B. Jordan up to the spotlight, but they won't do a Braveheart movie, no Mel Gibson. um yeah, it's just
Yeah,
blatantly corrupt industry at this point.
yeah. It doesn't matter what type of movie, whether they're catering for men or women, they're still gonna feed them something that's really toxic for them, right?
Yeah.
um, for men it will be about I don't know, race mixing just and it's gonna be subliminal, right?
Yeah, it's also
Where you're
it's
barely gonna be able.
it's gonna be it's gonna tell you stuff about like oh, just be nice and this is how you get the girl, and that kind of stuff too.
Right. You have to
Yeah,
be
Hollywood
like,
loves doing
just
that.
take it,
Yeah.
take it, take it.
Yeah,
Just take
exactly.
the abuse, man. If you don't take this abuse, you're not a real man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, man. I've in my whole life, dude, I've only dated a single mother once, dude, and yeah, it was a bad idea.
Yeah, man. Jeez. Honestly, man,
it's
I
it's
I don't think I can ever date a girl above 25 again. Like that freaked me out. Like,
How old are you? What gener
27.
are you?
Yeah.
You're
So,
a millennial, right?
uh
Or
like an old zoomer. Like
old zoomer?
oh shit, man,
yeah,
you're like my
just
brother.
barely Gen
Okay,
Z,
I'm
just
I'm
barely.
I'm a lot older than you. Just so you
Yeah.
I'm like Thomas. Not that old, but getting up there for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
but it doesn't matter. The Zoomers are gonna. You're pretty much a millennial almost,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
and you guys are gonna feel the pain because trust me, dude, it's not fun. What's coming for the younger generations? Unless you're a rich person, right? That can be isolated from all this crap.
Yeah.
You said you're from the Midwest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but I told you I lived in Colorado for a couple years,
Right,
like
right.
4 years.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
talking
it
about that.
was. I think my whole demise, dude, is like, yeah, I have like this. I have all these thoughts too, but I can truly express myself because everywhere I can afford to live, right, is a very liberal
Mhm.
environment. All the places that I can afford to live, right, I won't be able to, like, yeah, it would be, especially since I'm a first generation immigrant into this country, right? So I'm at the
Mhm.
bottom tier. So as far as me, like trying to get out of ideally for me, I want to live in a completely white neighborhood, 100%.
Mhm.
People that look as much as possible as me. They don't have to be Anglos, right? But I mean, I'm in the United States. I mean, what else can I can make those demands, right? That's as much as I can ask for. Because yeah, dude, I don't think I ever got, dude, like, isn't it crazy? And this is what's gonna happen, dude, to America. Like, you're gonna white people are gonna be, because that already happened in my home country, right? We whites are a minority. Like, and most most police, most teachers, most everybody, they're not white, you know? And I
Yeah.
mean, and I'm not saying like it's a terrible thing, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they're very nice to you,
Right.
they can be very nice. But there's something about like your tribe that you
Right.
never get that feeling, dude, and you never truly. And I remember, dude, like I would miss that. Like whenever I would see another
Mm-hmm.
white kid, I would want to just be his friend, and yeah, but it didn't mean it would work out, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just weird, man. Like in because I have a white friend in DR, dude, but he's so fucking depressed. And it's I think I would rather be with brown people than with him.
Right.
Because he's so fucking depressed and he's so backstabbing too. He's like a fucking Jew.
Right.
Um, um, he tried to fucking hit on my girl one time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he literally got jealous, dude. With a girl that I brought in, because we were in his car and we were staying in his beach house,
Mm-hmm.
like he really thought, that he could take it away from me. And I'm like, no, dude, like it's not gonna happen. And this is very disrespectful that you
Mm-hmm.
would do this to me when we're supposed to back each other up, you
Yeah.
know? And it was such a backstabbing thing, dude, because he basically was trying to entice her to go to his room because he was the only one that had an AC in his room, right? Because it was his house, right?
LOL. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and the girl, she got so annoyed at his behavior that she told me just to take her to the bus station and she was gonna go home. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's how annoyed she got, because he
Yeah.
kept like, I'm like, dude, like really?
Yeah.
You're gonna cock
That's
block me
like
like this? This
Yeah.
is like this
Exactly.
is like this is like egregious, dude. Like you don't understand. And here's the really sad part is, dude, we were in an area where there was no shortage of women. Okay, this is a very, especially back then, we were very young. We were like in our early 20s, and there was no shortage of women, dude. And
Mm-hmm.
but he was obsessed with my woman, um, and he couldn't take it, dude. I already made out with her. Like, doesn't like, do you really want to like
Mm-hmm.
try to like? Isn't it? I don't know, man. And we're supposed to be friends, but like that's the thing, dude. And that's really disappointing how some men don't have that fucking loyalty, man.
Yeah. It's
As soon
definitely
as a pussy is involved, dude, all loyalty goes out the fucking table. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
yeah,
a dying breed of guys who are willing to kind of like look at things like how you were saying, where it's like, okay, my, like a genuine friend. If you're, making out with a semi-attractive girl or whatever, they're gonna be like genuinely happy for you because they're a genuine friend. But, um, there's so many guys like Rehab Room talks about this. Obviously, so many guys are just kind of like bitter of other guys' success, and they're also I
right,
think part of it is like I hate to say this, but part of it I think is because the market is just so brutal. Where like guys just they want to like cock block other guys, but they also want to just like they're just willing to throw away like other male friendships and stuff over women. It's just wild. But I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
I feel like maybe that's a result of the market being so brutal, but I think it's also maybe just like normie male nature, like where it's like um oh, even though I have some kind of like brother semi like time forged in the fire with this guy, some kind of brotherhood built, they're willing to throw that away very quickly for even a chance at even just a small chance at some coochie, where it's just like
right.
I think that's just one of the
No,
there's brotherhood's a myth, I know that like people like Mercer were talking about building up male in group bias as a result to the observed female in group bias, but it's just like that's such wishful thinking because guys are willing to betray each other at a drop of a hat. Especially if
Right, right.
women or money or power is involved, of course.
Yeah, they'll betray each other like in a heartbeat. Um, I've tried to be honorable, with that kind of stuff. I've had some friends who've been pretty, pretty good wingmen in the past for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
But it truly hurts, when every so often you'll get somebody who's very close to you and he does something like that, right?
Right.
Where he like completely betrays you
Hmm.
and like even talks shit about you, just to score a few points in
Yeah.
front of the girls, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, dude, that's a test, dude, and dude, like if your so-called male friends can pass that test, man, is he really your fucking friend? Like, um, I don't think so, man. Like that's a pretty basic test, That's not even like involving money or anything, which is like how are you supposed to trust somebody like that,
Hmm.
Um and but yeah, I
Yeah, man.
remember, dude, one time I had and just to make a contrast, right? Like I had another friend who would back me up. Like he lent me his car so that I could pick up a girl. He lent me his personal car, and I was driving because, I was visiting my country, right? And I didn't rent a car, right? Because it's too expensive, when you throw away all your money. So he just let me use his car and he has a very nice car. So of course, some of the girls are very impressed, and they think you're rich by association. And they think you're well off, and yeah, they open the door for you all of a sudden. Um, and yeah, I had friends do that for me, and but
Yeah, man. I hear you, man. It's one of the darkest capsules I learned real quickly is there's something about like what you said about where it's like you almost see like other people kind of get stuff that you're just not getting for whatever reason. Like one example that comes to mind is well, obviously we talked about like the courtesies, right? Of like, okay, if I'm talking to this girl, that means that it should be like bro code where it's like, hey, hands off, guys. If anything, just wingman for me, make me look good. But we obviously see the opposite, right? They try to sneak ways at your girl. They try to like belittle you. They be like, oh, he's broke. They try to like find ways to kind of like put you down when you all are in conversation in front of her. But another thing that is weird. I think I forgot what I was gonna say. But yeah, man, like
yeah,
just
women are very very good at this, right? They always stick together no matter what, and I think the market lends itself for that.
right, and that's
Um,
that's where the whole you're a
yeah,
10 talk comes from, right? Because if there's Stacy who actually knows she's legitimately a 10, and then there's like the four to niner, right? There you got your what do they call them? They call her Gorlock, right? Gorlock the Destroyer, like a really fat chick.
right.
And then
Yeah,
Stacy's gonna tell Gorlock that she's a 10 because all that does is it makes Stacy look good. It lets them know that Stacy is participating in that, is cooperative and participating in that kind of environment. But at the same time, Stacy knows at the end of the day that she's kind of deluding Gorlock and making it less likely for Gorlock to find what she actually wants. and at the end of the day, Stacy still gets to go home at 10 out of 10 and be able to, find Chad and attract Chad and everything. So that's why women do that thing where they're like, "Oh, you're a 10 girl, don't worry about it," because they have nothing to lose and everything to gain by bigging up other women and telling them that they're just beautiful and they're a 10.
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, I cannot tell you how many times I went after a woman and she's always gatekept by this other female friend,
Right.
and it's like I had to go through the female friend who's a lot less attractive, but her opinion is very, very important, and I'm like, dude, like, who am I dating? Am I dating you or am I dating this other woman? Like, how many times is this going to happen to me? It seems like it's the norm, dude. It's like and the reason these females keep these other less attractive females around is just so they feel better about themselves, right? It boosts up their confidence, right? But they're always around, and you have to like be nice to them, you have to like take him with you. I had to do that so many times in the past to just tag along and wherever we were going,
right.
Make sure that she was also kind of taken care of, right? And unfortunately, a lot of my bros would definitely not help me, especially if she was less attractive.
Mm-hmm.
They would feel inferior or something.
I remember something I was going to say earlier. Do you want to finish your point?
No, go ahead.
So
kind of rambling.
One thing I was like, one of the Dark Gate capsules I noticed is like, obviously you talk about like Brotherhood's a myth and all that, but sometimes, especially myself, right? I'm not gonna lie, like there's, my buddies have gotten with some girls where like, okay, in another circumstance, right? I would have liked to be in that position, getting with that girl because I do find her attractive. But it's like, hey, I'm genuinely happy for my buddy, yada yada, and move on with life. And like you said, there's a lot of fish in the sea, especially when you're in college. It's easy to have thoughts like that where it's like, hey, I'm genuinely happy for my buddy, but I gotta get mine. Mine's out there somewhere. No big deal. That obviously gets a lot tighter as you get older. You're not in college. It's not like there's an abundance of young women everywhere. But one of the other crazy things I've noticed is I've never really had the courtesy of like anyone setting me up or anyone like trying to get me a date. You know what I'm saying? Everything has just been me, my own hard work, me falling on my face repeatedly. I have these other guys I've known from college and stuff where they'll be like girls we know in our like friend group or whatever you call it. And these girls, I'm not saying all the time, but a couple times I've seen this, and this has happened for me 0 times, but a couple of times these girls will just kind of like find someone from their friend group, just kind of like pluck them up, be like, oh, just run it by this other girl, be like, what do you think of this guy? And if she kind of finds him semi-attractive, they end up exchanging contact info through this girl, and then they we'll go on a coffee date or something. I've never had no courtesy like that, and it's just kind of, I think what part of it might be is the people I know from college, especially during the like lockdown and stuff, they kind of identified me as like someone who's kind of fallen out of like the liberal programming, the college kind of programming. So I think that's part of it. But it's also, even when we were in college, I wasn't getting that kind of courtesy. So it's like, it was easy for me to kind of like fall out and just kind of be like, hey guys, I'm not really who I was in college politically, ideologically. You kind of have to deal with that. And I credit my friend group to some degree. I think they've accepted that, but it's also, I think I'm paying like the toll in other ways where it's like, some of these guys who have like, these girl mutual friends, we all have these girl mutual friends. These girl mutual friends will maybe do these little favors for these other guys. These other guys who they know can be kind of like controlled, can be kind of de-radicalized, can be, can cuck dance for a woman, are willing to bend the knee for a woman. Right. They know I'm just not like that kind of guy. So I think that's why they hold off on me. But that is something I found really frustrating where it's like, you just kind of, you don't get the same equal treatment in any friend group or any kind of, social group. I've heard stories of this happened to me a few times in college, but this is something I remember Gerbert Johnson mentioned this in one of those like ride-in stories that go into his channel. But basically, in college, you sit down, you're in a new class for the first time, and you kind of like, you maybe start up a conversation with someone next to you. You genuinely like try to be this person's friend, right? And, this person gives you like these one-word answers. They're not really interested or whatever. And then by like the end of that class, there'll be just some guy who sat maybe adjacent to you, diagonal to you, or whatever. And that guy next to you, who you were trying to be like their genuine friend or whatever, like you were genuinely trying, that person next to you will then go and talk to this person diagonal who said like nothing, did nothing. And then that person will give this random person like basically the same thing that you did, where it's like, oh hey man, like whatever, they just like hit it off in conversation, they exchange like contact info, and it's like, wow, like what, why can't that happen to me? Like that's just so weird, where it's like, when I try to do this person was just totally like turned off to me, but then this person who says nothing, does nothing, gets like contact info, and this person's trying to like hang out with him, be buddy after school or whatever. It's just kind of weird. I've seen this too many times to just kind of like not think something's up with it. I think, like I was saying, there's a spiritual warfare element of it, where these girls I knew from college. Of course, they're not going to set me up with any of their friends because they know I can't be de-radicalized. They know, or it's unlikely. I'm unlikely to cuck dance and stuff. So I think that might be it. Like there's like the people can just tell by someone's gait or their face or whatever. But I think there's also, it's like it's like an autism gap, or it's like something like that. It's I think there is a spiritual warfare element though, where it's like, oh hey, this person has like unique thoughts, perspective, ideas. They're kind of outside the normie realm. We can't really reward them with social interaction despite efforts. Where it's weird, literally the more asocial people can kind of get social rewards in this society nowadays. Society. Asocial behavior is actively being rewarded, especially if you're a decent looking, because that's the ones who get away with asocial behavior the most, obviously, is like decent looking women nowadays. They can be literally like one word answers, like not even try to have a conversation, and it's almost like a game of like what guy can like single-handedly carry the conversation, put up with my bitchiness, the shit test game or whatever.
Yeah, dude, but friends, your male friends are very important, and you should definitely try to, get some, hopefully they're loyal, you have to reciprocate these things to each other, and kind of teach them, whether the good way or the hard way. Because typically they're going to be in the same predicament you're going to be in, right? So they just have to learn, like a little gang, right? Like you guys have to be, that's what it has to come down to. I mean, taking that to an extreme, right? You have a street gang, right? Where the loyalty is everything, right? But I mean, you don't have to go to that extreme, but there has to be some certain level of loyalty, man, in a male group.
Right.
Otherwise, it's very counterproductive, and you are all gonna lose at the end of the day. But yeah, man. I remember the time I've had most success with women has correlated with the time I had the biggest circle of friends surrounding me.
Right.
That's always been the case. Like there was a point in my life where I would go out. I would go out to like the mall, and I had like 3 friends always surrounding me. And I think because of that, that creates this signal to women that I'm like important or something, or leader or whatever, and that makes them really attractive, to me. That made him really attractive to me.
Yeah.
I remember, dude, it was like nonstop. Like every girl that I would meet in the wild in such an arrangement, it would always be a success, and they would always want to keep it going and keep,
Hmm.
talking and following up. And yeah,
Yeah. That I
which
mean,
which was
we've been so like
yeah.
atomized, all of friendship groups, and I think this is something that the lockdowns really did. Was it kind of like really atomized people, sent people into online worlds a lot faster. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
something.
yeah. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, in those time when I was like, basically, the internet hadn't really completely taken over
Yeah,
people's
yeah,
life,
yeah,
right? I mean, there was the beginnings of social media, right? But people were not. It was just the beginning. There wasn't even. There were things like MySpace, High Five. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
yeah, yeah,
High
yeah.
Five. It's like a very old social media. That was probably one of the original ones. I don't know if that happened in the States, but that was in my home country. It was called High Five, HI5. There was MSN too, like the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the kids in my school had a handle, with all these weird characters on it, thinking it was cool. Um, but yeah, I guess, and that made people a lot more sociable and more willing to always go out every weekend, and just socialize. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, I for anyone listening to this, guys, and you're struggling with Inkweldom or whatever, if you guys can get like Chad or Chad light friends who are like genuinely decent people, like not, we talk a lot about like the shitty guys, the shitty normie kind of guys where, if you like what happened to my guest here, where it's like, if you have if you're making out with a girl, you've kind of had some success with the girl on a kind of night out, they kind of almost have to steal your thunder, make you look bad, those kinds of like put you downs. And guys do this because they view that as okay, I can get a material gain out of this guy. I have a slight chance of cat if I do this or whatever, a slight chance of pussy if I do that. But if you guys can, if you're able to get some Chad or Chad light friends who are genuinely like decent people, guys who get laid like semi regularly, like you can learn a lot from just hanging out with these guys. And it is going to be like dark capsuling to some degree, just seeing how easy it is, something like a cold approach is for them or something like that. But just being around those guys definitely can kind of get you more into the kind of like headspace needed to kind of get a successful lay for sure. Because they just, it's almost like a lifestyle for them. You can definitely like learn things from guys like that. Because I think I would consider my peak is it was the year right before the lockdowns. It was my last year of college, and I had a group like this from work. They were like these kind of like Chadlight guys from out of college, and just going out to the bars and stuff with them. I learned a good amount just about kind of like getting female interest. Kind of just gauging interest, getting female interest. And just kind of dealing with that stuff. But yeah, this is all pre-lockdown
right.
though, so it's it was an entirely different era, man. I just you can't put the genie back in the bottle with something like lockdowns, man. It's they took a lot away from us there. A lot of small businesses closed. A lot of boomers got wealthy in a low interest rate environment. Asset wealth went way up.
Yeah. In fact, I'll even mention this, dude. Like, do you go to a private school or a public school?
I have experience with
Like
both.
growing up?
I mean, obviously, I would
Yeah.
say I was in a private school up until about fifth grade, and I switched to a public school. Maybe for worse, honestly.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I had a similar change as well, and
Yeah.
that transition happened when I moved to America. I went to a public school. But in DR, dude, I was in a private school, and I think that made a huge difference for me, like massive difference, because the thing is, and I don't know if that's the case here, but the private school there, you're always with the same group of kids, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like from
100% true here too.
like it never changes, And when I went to public school, in Florida, you like every every year it was, and all the classes were completely different groups of people. So there wasn't an incentive for me to create any sort of meaningful relationship with these people because it was very ephemeral, right? It was very temporary.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine that private schools here are the same as in DR, right? Like it's always like the same group of kids that you will go to class. Like, and I mean every class, right? Like math, history, American history, like all the different classes is always the same group of kids,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And that created like this kind of tribal mentality among us, right?
Right.
And that's where I would think like I truly bonded with some friends, and obviously with females too, you know. But and to this day, these were the friends that I still talk to this day, right? The some of these guys that I
Right.
bonded with, when I was in those schools,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that had a lot to do with it. And also, obviously, if you go to a private school, chances are they're probably well off in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their parents
Yeah.
are like well off, and but that wasn't truly the case for me. I kind of got lucky, because of my family helping my mother put me in that school. Um, but yeah, man, it's just a different ball game. And that's why yeah, dude, like not everybody has the same path in life. Period, man. Like it's completely different depending on where, if your parents are, already struggling, chances are you're going to go to, a shitty public school somewhere,
Right.
and things are going to be hard for you to break out of that, right? Unless you really stand out in some way. Um,
Yeah. I
but
think
yeah,
man, like it's weird because I think public school is one of those things where like it's just not for I don't know if it's ideal for my thing that I really suffered looking back on it with was getting pulled into that public school environment. Like what sucked about it the most honestly was kind of losing that racial homogeneity because then
yep,
man I was just like because I was coming of age right going into middle school right and you then all of a sudden you got to go to school with like the hot Cheeto bonnet wearing women eat hot chip and lie and twerk. Then you got to go to high school with the tortas.
right.
It was just different. Yeah, like losing that. Because the thing was like it was like a nice like white Christian private school I was going to, and like you said, we knew everyone. You know, everyone knew each other's name, kind of thing, and you kind of grow up together, kind of thing. Um, and yeah, just kind of losing that, was tough. And I'd also say, I want to close on this, or land on this point, where it's like, I think I have a lot of friends from public school, especially in high school, where they look back on it and they're like grateful that they got, because the high school I went to was actually decent. It had like good AP classes. It had some benefits, right? But it had the same issue I'm talking about with the tortas and the hot Cheeto ladies and stuff. Where it's like, okay, I
Yeah.
really didn't have dating prospects, but academic wise, the school was fine. And I feel like the ones who, I have friends who they talk back on this, they look fondly back on high school, and to some degree I do too. But I feel like the reason why they don't like have the trouble I have looking back on it is because they were kind of the racial majority. Any of these like black friends or even like Asian or Hispanic friends, they were kind of I went to school, it was only a quarter white, so it was
Yeah.
hella different than what your I think your normal high school. We still have a over 60% white population in the US, so a lot of these high schools, even in the especially in the Midwest, should be significantly white. But because of where I am in like the inner city or whatever, not like in the inner city, but just where I am in the city, um, I just lost a lot of that racial homogeneity, and I struggled in like dating culture because of that. There's a legit argument that just cream cheese people in general are kind of like they use the slower mating strategy. I think it's called the R strategy. There's R and K strategists. Chat might know which is which. I'm too lazy to Google it. But we're just gonna call it like the slow mating strategy, where it's like, you know, a cream cheese person, I think genetically and the way their brains wired and stuff, are just more likely to think, okay, you know, family structure, raise a smaller amount of offspring and bring them to adulthood and care for them very carefully. But it's also, you know, these cream cheese people, they come from like they're Caucasoids, right? They come from the Caucasus Mountains. It gets really cold. It's very harsh winters, you know. So I think just genetically, they're thinking about things that other races of people on a genetic level. This is like lizard brain unconscious, right? I'm not trying to be like a racist or anything. This is just an observation, of course, right? So it's like, I think, you know, these Caucasoid people, they're having these like long-term thoughts that just other people coming from warmer climates might not have. So do I need to store food for the winter? What is my family structure like? I don't think I could raise a third kid, but I can probably raise two really well. You know, these are the kind of like thoughts that go through their head because they have to face things like winters and stuff. And, you know, you could make an argument for maybe that's why they developed certain technologies or formed certain high trust societal structures and stuff like that, right? Because it's just a better way of doing things, because, you know, a group of you, it's going to be a group of you versus the winter. You know, that's what it's going to come down to. Whereas in these like warmer climates, especially like sub-Saharan climates and stuff like that, like they just don't have these concerns and stuff. So, and it feeds into what I'm saying about like mating and dating, where it's like, you know, these sub-Saharans or whatever, they're a lot more willing to just kind of like try whatever on, have like a high amount of offspring, be okay with like high offspring, high mortality rate. Whereas like I just don't think like Caucasoid people are wired that way in their brain. So when I'm talking about, you know, I'm in high school and I'm surrounded by the tortas and the hot Cheeto women, you know, I think that's why I was getting killed, was because I think the zeitgeist in the mating and dating strategy was just try on whatever, and I didn't get that. You know, I wasn't getting the memo. I was just trying to do, you know, clueless mental cell inkwell dating. You know, just kind of being clueless,
dude,
hoping someone comes along. You know, for a lot of these guys, it's just they don't have the information and they don't have a way to kind of like manifest their desires into the physical world, you know? Like they don't have actionable way to start. And that's kind of partially how I was, you know, if you don't have the dating options in front of you anyway, who you're genuinely interested in, you know, how could you even learn the game?
Right. Yeah, dude, like the whole climate thing, I think that explains a lot, right? Like if you see where all civilizations evolved, where the Neolithic revolution occurred, you know, it all happened in places where winter was a thing, right? Countries that are closer to the equator, they don't have seasons, and therefore they don't need a high trust type of arrangement, right, to prepare, right? Like, and I think that explains a lot, right? Maybe that's how white people were, how the Caucasoid was created in the first place, right?
Right.
If you believe that it evolved, I don't know. I don't get that deep into like ancient history, right? But I do think like climate has a lot to do with it, right? Because I, you know, by the way, I is Dominican.
Right. Uh-oh. Did we lose him? Hello? I think we, uh-oh. I don't think we can hear you, man. Do you want to try dropping and rejoining if you can hear me? I think was it my fault? Microphone. Oh, okay. What's going on here? Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I was saying just the whole climate theory. There's
Yeah.
even a book called Gun, Germs, and Steel, and he basically, Jared Diamond, and he explained. I read this book, dude, when I was in college,
Mm-hmm.
and I still remember. And I mean, that's a pretty, and honestly, this is the anti-racist explanation of things, by the way, right? Like, this is how you can explain away, all the disparity you see amongst the races, right?
Right.
As far as developing civilization. But it's like some people are in complete denial, right? And they want to like gaslight you with everything.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I just obviously I don't buy this whole idea that this idea that people are structurally the same, this nature versus nurture debate, and a lot of these especially leftists and stuff will have this thought that like nature, people are genetically just the same, nature doesn't really have a significant component when it comes to like social cohesion or any of these things, being a socially upstanding citizen, but I'm not buying that idea at all, because I just I see quite the opposite, and I just even if it is like a subtle difference, I just don't think it doesn't seem to be sufficient, to just say, oh, we're ideologically going to educate this way and things are going to work out. It doesn't seem to be a sufficient strategy. I think there's a different piece to the pie, and I think that lies in the nature component.
Yeah. I think that's why they came up with the whole word ethnicity, right? Because now you're not even supposed to talk about race, right?
Right.
That's kind of like taboo.
Yeah.
And that's why, the proper way of communicating in liberal society, it's, you talk about your ethnicity, right? Which is basically where you come from. So as far as I'm concerned, for me, that means like, yeah, forget about your ancestors. I'm not fucking white. In fact, as far as, even here in America, right? Even other white peoples, they just call me Hispanic, right? Like, or Latino. And it's like it's like my whole biological roots are completely erased. It's like my ancestors never existed, and I'm just supposed to, and I'm actually encouraged to just say, oh yeah, I am Dominican, and I'm like, yeah, but that is not a race, that is a nationality, and obviously people are afraid of just talking about what a biological race is, just like they are afraid about talking about natural biological sexes, right? And they just want to talk about so-called gender, right? So that's what the whole system is doing, right? They're abstracting away our biological reality, right? And they want to, the same thing happened with sex, right? They came up with this term called gender, and that was reason, right? Because they want to disconnect it from the biological reality that are the sexes, which is completely objective, it's unavoidable, and it is, should be the basis of everything we do, in society. It should be how families are formed. But no, the social engineers, that's not good enough for them. They want to be able to manipulate people and to create other type of families, which are not necessarily men and a woman, right? And a natural man and not. And the same thing is happening with races, right? And that's even more radical for them, right? That they go even harder on that. Yeah. Because at least with the whole man and woman thing, right? You got all the other races, fighting for it, right? But when it comes to white, like we're kind of isolated, right? Because we are the scapegoat for everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't know how long you want to go for, but
yeah, I'm gonna do like a 5-minute warning. Is anyone in the chat or anything? Get your last chats in. I'm probably gonna try to get off here in like 5 minutes. But yeah, this has been a good stream, man. I think we went deep into some topics, some important stuff. And it's just important to be like, just remember, people are gonna try to throw like shaming language at you. They're gonna try to frame your argument as shaming language. That's almost what being called a racist is nowadays. It's just a shaming term. They're trying to like shame you in a certain framing of the cultural zeitgeist. But I think as the cultural zeitgeist is shifting, and you see stuff like Shiloh Hendrix and all these other like weird niche stories that are happening where things aren't playing out quite like how you'd expect. Things are almost kind of playing out in a way that the liberal globalist new world order would hate to see. As these things happen, just remember that like try to like stick to your guns, and just remember that a lot of these people are trying to shame you, and you don't have to go out so easily. We can stick to our guns somewhat. But yeah, like I don't know, man. Like I'm a little bit more optimistic on things than I was maybe like a year ago. Things were really bleak. Like I remember especially,
COVID?
yeah, not only COVID, but like I remember, dude, I remember just like fall right before the election last year. Um, that was just a rough
Yeah.
time. Yeah, it was just a rough time because I'm not saying like it's not like Donald Trump's come in and like waved the magic wand and fixed everything, but it's just it was a rough time because we had a like man, it was just so hard for me to like we had to deal with the whole thing about Biden was being ran as like a weekend at Bernie's president, like he was a corpse. And then we had to go through the whole thing about, okay, now they're gonna run Kamala just because she's a woman, and they're trying to, they were trying to
Yeah.
literally like swing the election on like reproductive rights and like this like false, like almost like a pharmaceutical pill of hope, like not a real fix, like a very like artificial kind of like forced down your throat. This like branding of like hope or like happiness or cheer, and that's kind of what Kamala represented. But it was also the thing that she also represented was like that reproductive rights dogma of like it doesn't matter what your policies on economy are, it doesn't matter what your policies on immigration are, on nation building, on national identity. These policies don't
No, yeah.
matter. The only policy that matters is can I, kill my infant baby in the womb at whatever weeks, like up to even like, they want to do even like these late term abortions, like they want to be able to do it whenever
Right.
they want to do it. And
Moloch, child sacrifice. That's all they care about.
yeah, but that was the thing that just disoriented me so much was like Gen Z women, like specifically by far reported in polls and
Yeah.
stuff that was their number one issue was above the economy, above the cost of living, above all this shit that we deal with, and we're getting choked out over, and we're like I was saying, we're likely gonna do most people are gonna do worse than their parents, and it's because of these issues. That doesn't matter because the programming is so strong over issues like abortion and stuff, where there still were, like I know people say the election wasn't close because Donald Trump, won the popular vote, won the electoral, but you got to still remember that Kamala Harris was a candidate that like 45 million or so people like lined up to vote for. And you compare that to Trump, it was something like 46 or 47 million. So these numbers weren't too far off from each other. Like there was a lot of people who like wanted the country to go that way. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was just a weird time, and things could have obviously gone like the other direction. And I think we have certain like white pills now about like, okay, the border is more or less closed, so it's almost like at least we shut the water off, or whatever the term is. And there's a couple other white pills like the thing about Benjamin, like Trump is kind of playing hardball with Benjamin or no contact with Benjamin, and it's just all these things. I just really saw Kamala as like a potential continuation of like Biden, and I feel like even though this is a very much a bought and paid for president and all that stuff, it's like at least we're getting a bone thrown to us by like the globalist world order or whatever. There is like a bone of populism being thrown in there where it's like it's almost like the U.S. is partially getting its identity back, but I think it might be, I don't know, it might be all too late. I'm probably coping.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
somebody wants to get in. I don't know if you want to go in. I'll stay if another person joins
Yeah,
in, so you guys can talk, and I'll come back.
okay,
It's up
we'll
to
see
you.
who this is, and we'll maybe give him a couple minutes. But yeah, I am trying to get off here
Yeah.
soon.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, what's up, Broping?
I don't know if you saw earlier, I was on the Thomas White show. I came to listen over here too.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah.
I was listening.
You got anything you want to talk about on stream?
Yeah, I was listening to you guys, I believe. Oh, shit. Oh my God. Give me literally 1 second because I'm actually at work right now. Give me like 1 second. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Bro, literally the second I call in, somebody pulls up. It's crazy.
You work at a fast food restaurant or something?
No, security guard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
I used to
that's
be a
that's good work. That's a good job, especially
I
for guys in these spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's at nighttime too, so you know how it is.
Yeah, you get more pay working at night.
I used to be a lifeguard, so I know what it's like to stand in one place for a long, long time.
One thing that got me into tech was I was working at I was like working like an overnight job at the hospital, but you had like a lot of time to study. Like I was kind of just a person who just like checked on patients basically. So I would just do my checks like every 15 minutes as required, and the whole rest of the time I had to like read and stuff. So that's when I started reading about like computer networking and how all that information moves across the internet. And then I
Do you
eventually
know,
got like IT
you
certs
know,
now.
you know about the OSI model?
Yeah, dude, I know all about the
Okay, yeah.
OSI. Yeah,
That's very, very, very important in networking.
yeah,
And it's yeah, that whole layered architecture of networking. But
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
I love networking, by the way. That's one of my favorite things. And that's not like what my career is about, but that's one of the things I just literally independently just learn about
Oh yeah, it's so important
on
if
my own
for
accord.
like
Yeah, it
and
is.
and that was the thing was I was always kind of like I knew that IT was going to be like a big field and everything, but I never really knew where to start. And as soon as I kind of like found out about how important networking is for no matter what you go into, no matter if you're just going to do like you know, just working on like hardware. If you're gonna do like even like software engineering, it'd be important. But especially if you're doing like cloud, which is huge today, or cybersecurity,
And
which is huge today.
and don't get me wrong, like if you're a software engineer, all these stuff is abstracted away from you, right? Like,
Yeah.
but as a good engineer, you should have a good understanding of how these systems are put together
Hmm.
because even when you're designing a system as a software engineer, you sometimes have to like borrow ideas from other systems, right? And that's where people get their ideas from. Like understanding the topology of networks, right, turns out to be very important, when you're designing a cluster, for example,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
just so yeah, it's just you have to be a well-rounded engineer, right? You can't
Hmm.
just like um
All right. What's
Hey
up? What's
guys,
up,
uh
Ropian?
sorry about that. You know how the wagey lifestyle is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to you guys earlier. I believe you said one of you guys said your experiences going into a mostly non-cream cheese school environment.
Yeah. That was something I had to go through.
What was the demographics, if you remember?
Yeah. So
Or if,
My school was about a little over 50% black. I'd say like 55%. Um,
Oof.
the
Oh man, that's bad.
white
No,
population was about 20%, and Hispanic was about 25.
you're gonna love this because actually, my experience was actually even worse. Because I don't know where you guys lived. I don't know if you talked about it, your states or whatever. But did you guys? I personally, I'm in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you already know. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the demographics of New York City.
Pretty diverse place,
Somewhat.
yeah.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, my high school, it was literally, I would have to say the cream cheese percentage, it was probably 5%.
Jeez.
And
Wow.
the rest, it was all like, black, Hispanic, whatever.
Yeah. Man,
Right.
it's not even losing
No,
all your dating options to, just not being able to date to your preference, but it's also just all these
it's
fat
not even
people.
just, yeah, it's not even just that. You don't even like fit in, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if you're like the one white guy in a class, what are you gonna do in this situation?
Right.
Yeah, so they probably have this hip hop culture, that is
And not just
predominant
that,
in high school. It's like,
yeah, it's like you said, the Marias, they're more likely to date, the Pablos, because they speak the same language, they're in the same
Mm-hmm.
communities. And then the Tyrones are more likely to go to Shaniquas for the same reason.
Yeah.
And then the few white girls that remain, it's like open season, all the men are trying to go for it.
Right.
You're competing with like Tyrone and like all the
Yeah.
top. So it's like,
All the white girls have like like a social conditioning programmed at them from like Hollywood, all the stuff they're watching on TV, but also like their teachers, they're to explore, other flavors of guys, it's all a subtle conditioning, but it's absolutely happening.
yeah, and not only that, it's like, I mean, it's kind of like what would you call it? It's a continuing situation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if some guy's not going to succeed in high school, like once he goes in college, he's pretty much cooked
Right.
realistically.
Yeah. It
I think
definitely
Nick.
snowballs, yeah. If you have a very like negative high school experience, and you can be like locked out of like what you're saying, Ropium, and I think I had something similar where it's like just the demographic destiny pill I was fed in high school just kind of forced me to
Yeah,
have it forced me
I
to
was like
have a
forced to take it.
very corrupt upbringing and social calibration with women.
And also, obviously, women they only kind of like stand to benefit in this situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
If there's a bunch of diversity, it's like a white woman, she's like number one. She
Right.
has diversity. She has more options. She has more competition. She's like gaining everything.
Yeah,
Well, if it's like a white guy, he's not really benefiting.
yeah, I think women like the high competition that comes with a lot of different groups, competing. I think they kind of get off on that. They like that idea of people having to like kind of like work harder or fight a more nefarious game rather than just you know, like there's that meme about the Woodstock, right? In boomer times when they're going to Woodstock, and you just had maybe I forget how many people. There was close to 1 million, I think, U.S. soldiers died in World War II. Obviously you probably had like 30 million Russians or something like that. And 15 million Germans. A lot of people died. A lot of men died, and so you got
Not
it's
even that, but even and to even go further on that, I mean, right now you kind of have a war in Ukraine. I mean, the Ukrainian men are straight up getting like full blown,
right.
eliminated in a sense. And what happened to the women? They just packed up and left.
Yeah, and that's a very dark capsule there, because that's the important to in Ukraine's an important case study, boyos, because the thing to remember about Ukraine was like they would want to do that to us. So if we go to a war, I don't know if like Taiwan, let's say Taiwan happens, China actually goes through with it, invades Taiwan, and then the draft has to open
Iran
up
is
or
more
whatever.
likely, realistically.
They would love to do what happened. So imagine all of our women, right, being like, oh, we're gonna leave the country, and then they go to a place like Switzerland, and then they get on Tinder or whatever, wherever they can get refugee status, right? Meanwhile, imagine you like having to just stay behind just because your country decided to like conscript you or whatever, and then now you have to
Yeah, I don't
go
know.
into like these drone wars where these drones
I
buzz
don't know if you've
around.
seen these videos. Have you seen these videos of these guys just getting pulled up off the street, put
Yeah.
into a van, and then shipped to the front lines? It's like, what the? Could you imagine being like an 18-year-old inkwell? You just turned 18. You've never touched a woman, and you get kidnapped and forced to get blown up. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, man, and it's not, it's the thing
And
that I
women
just
don't
think
care,
is,
bro. Bro,
yeah,
the
they don't
women don't
care.
care. That's the big.
Yeah, they literally are just gonna go to another foreign country and start like a Tinder account there.
And then even more, bro, it's like the men have not woken up. They haven't like said, "Oh, this is insane. We're not gonna do this." It's like, what the hell is going on? Men are just
Yeah.
marching. I'm not even talking about those men specifically. I'm talking about men worldwide. They're just marching to their doom.
Right. I don't know much about Ukraine. I know it has a very Eastern influence, like kind of a Russian influence, but also like it's weird because the Ukraine war is very clearly being propped up by like, big money donations, a lot of like military industrial complex interest. So it's almost like it's weird, but you're entirely right about what you're saying. There's like these men don't really have like a sense of what's going on because if what I described happened and the draft opened up here in a place like the US, I think the shift has happened where like some men, I'm not saying all men are like losing the blue capsule, but the blue capsule is definitely on the down the decline, right?
I don't know, bro. This is where I say propaganda. It can be so powerful. Like we're even seeing it now that Trump became president again. You've seen the propaganda blow up with the
Yeah.
military. Now that you see in these new advertisements, they're
Mhm.
putting white men in the advertisements, and all of
Yeah.
a sudden these right wingers before this they're like fuck the military, fuck Biden. Now they're like all of a sudden pro military again. They're like ready
Yeah.
to go to war with Iran. It's like what? You see what I mean? It's like no matter what happens, I think men can be propagandized to do anything. It's just insane.
Did you know that in World War I think it was World War I, but it might be two, there were these girls, I think in the
The white thing, the white flowers, right?
yeah. I'll tell the story
Yep.
real quick where it's basically I think these were German guys, but basically if you were like not enlisted, these girls would go around and they'd like put a white feather in your pocket if they knew you weren't enlisted, you weren't like in military uniform. This is like months before everyone knows they're going to war, right? And so this idea was like, that action of a girl like putting a white feather on you or whatever was like, it was like a shaming tactic of like, oh, this guy's like a white feather, he's not like a real man or whatever. So it was kind of like this shaming tactic to incentivize guys to go like die for their country. Meanwhile, obviously, the girls are gonna try to just shelter in place or get refugee status and like escape, and likely,
Yeah.
likely interface with their own programming, which is gonna have them very soon treating another guy as like the conqueror, and then mating with other guys.
It's brutal, boy. It's brutal.
Yeah, man. But yeah, I mean, the Ukraine is a great
Well,
case study because that's literally what they would do to us is they would just kind of view like any men like age 16 to like 35 or probably more like 16 to 40 as like cannon fodder. Any the conveniently like right before the boomers basically, right before anywhere the elites. But yeah, like they're going to just view these guys as cannon fodder and they're just going to let all the girls just kind of do whatever, even though we all have the same rights to vote, even though we all pay the same taxes or whatever, the burden is always going to fall on the guys.
yep. And it's brutal because in the past, I mean, there wasn't really if men went into war in the past, they had something to, they had a family that
Right.
man.
Yeah,
Now it's
there
like
was something to
like
fight
if you
for.
look at
Yeah.
this, yeah, if you look at the situation, it's like all the women left. It's like okay, even if you win the war, they're not gonna come back.
Right.
Like, so what the
Yeah, I
fuck is the
think
plan
I
here?
I think in current times they have a completely different strategy to incentivize men to go into war, right? You have to like literally reward them immediately, right? With
well, like,
something like with instant gratification, right? Like there's no longer this sense of, community that, countries once had. And I think that's a side effect of this, yeah, this system that we live in. Um,
brutal. Also, I wanted something I want to talk about. This is gonna sound kind of crazy, but have you guys ever discussed like gender demographics, that type of stuff?
A little bit. Like one thing that we talk about a lot is that Gen Alpha is going to be 20% smaller. So this idea that you can, be what the Crimson Capsulars say and like go into your 30s and peak then, it's just going to be harder to date younger women because there's just going to be
And
fewer of them.
actually, what I was talking about is like, for example, the common perception is the gender is like 50-50, 50% men, 50% women, right?
You're talking about how that's kind of maybe a myth.
I'm not even saying, even if you straight up look at the scientific evidence, because the way it works is women outlive men, right? We all know this.
Yeah.
So there's more old women, but if you look at the younger demographics, like 20 and below, 30 and below, there's more men.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, technically it's 50-50, but not really. If you're like a 20 or 30 and below guy, there's more men.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's natural to have slightly more male births and female births because the idea is that men are gonna go die in wars and stuff, and that's just kind of
But it's also being compounded. Like I heard you guys were talking about the H-1B visa stuff earlier.
right.
It's like the vast majority of these H-1B guys, I've seen them, I worked with them, they're men.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge
And not
issue,
just
dude.
that, if you've ever seen these pictures of like these caravans, these mass movements of migrants in the southern border, it's like you can see from the picture clearly it's 80% men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what the fuck? We're just getting filled with men, more single men. It's like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, we can't get any Pajitas. We can't get any.
Like I talked to some guys.
Yeah.
I don't know if do you guys know about San Francisco? It's a very STEM heavy area, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
So obviously you'll have a bunch of H-1B people. I talked to them, bro. They literally call San Francisco Man Francisco because there's so many fucking men
Right.
there because of all the H-1B
Is that
STEM shit.
is that why there's so many homosexuals in San Francisco?
Probably partially, yeah.
That's probably why there's so much drug use too. They're all going crazy over there.
Yeah, dude, like it's so brutal. Like yeah, I think it's just, there is kind of like a shortage of women, man. Like I just,
But that's kind of, yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, right?
we're not getting any like Pajitas or Marias or anything to offset the immigration. We're just getting Vikrams and Jose's and Pablos,
Yep, and then you have these wars where all these men are getting killed, and it's like, okay, so where are the women now? Why are we not seeing these benefits of,
I know that I think if I have a theory where if Trump was president during the whole Ukraine war going down, obviously it was it happened during Biden, like smack dab in the middle of Biden's tenure in like 2022.
Yeah, I think Trump would not have. I don't think it was going to happen with him, realistically.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, let's say if it did happen under Trump, I could see Trump, like, opening up the refugee status to U.S. for the Ukrainian women.
Oh, man, that would have...
Yeah, that would have been nice, wouldn't it? Because, like...
Yeah,
because like having
crazy. Hold on, like, their whole country got evacuated.
Yeah,
we didn't get a single one.
Their whole country gets evacuated, and then they go to, like, these, like, neighboring European countries. It's like, heaven forbid... heaven forbid they come here.
And Middle Easterners evacuate. We get them. What the fuck?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. Where it's like all the immigration and stuff, it has to come and like take our jobs, but then it also has to just be all men, just all extra excess men, just people we don't want to fuck, people we don't have interest in like starting a family with. Like fuck off with that.
Brutal boy. Hey, guest, is he still here? Who is this?
Yeah, I guess.
What?
I heard he said he was Dominican. I know a bunch of Dominicans here.
Oh yeah, the Bronx is filled with Dominicans.
Oh yep, he knew the.
Yeah, there's probably New York City is gonna get to the point where there's gonna be more Dominicans in New York City than in the island itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably half. I'll tell you right now, they're the largest immigrant group in New York City in modern times by far.
Yep.
I don't know, yeah, and I honestly I think that we dominate. We're like a Jewish instrument of like
Well, at least here
uh,
where I'm from, it's kind of like most Dominicans that arrive here, they become like, no offense, they just go fully ghettoized, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And it's
they
like
are.
they essentially become like the Tyrones that were already here. We get more Tyrones now. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Yep, they get yeah, they get into the hip hop culture, right? That's what even some of
Bro,
my cousins, like they get yeah, they turn into niggers.
bro.
Excuse my word. But
But yeah, how's the dating scene on the island? I heard you earlier say you'd been on India. Or how's it over there? How's it looking?
it's I do a lot better there. Yeah, it's a
Actually, let
lot
me ask
better.
you: Do they have
It's more
more?
conservative.
Do they have more women over there since a bunch of the guys are coming over here?
I don't know the exact statistics, but I just know women tend to be. I mean, they're definitely getting more liberal, right? Because this whole globalization. So you're definitely seeing more lesbians and more of that stuff in there as well. But not in mass as it is happening here. And in fact, other women, I mean, it's just like there's this, they're more family oriented, right? They're not, um, so I think you're a lot more people. The one thing is, right, you're not going to find that many white women, right? They're going to be mostly brown.
Yeah, I mean,
But at this stage in my life, I don't care, right? Like you know,
I mean,
I think that ship sailed for me a long time ago. I can't wait for a white woman.
bro, yeah,
Um,
bro. At this point, unironically, in New York City, it's come to the point where I'm more likely to run into somebody that's Jewish than somebody that's white. It's crazy.
oh yeah, you are in the belly of the beast, my friend.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, my sister lives in Queens. Yeah. Um, but she has two kids, right? So yeah.
Brutal.
There was something that I wanted to talk about real quick. Um, so
What's that?
okay, I'm trying to think like how to put this. Oh man, it's getting late. Shit.
You forgot.
Yeah, man, y'all might just have to say something and then it'll come back to me. I'm sorry. This is the second time I've done this all stream.
Would you say Sosa?
Okay, I remember what it was. So, basically, we were talking earlier about like differences that might exist in like a Caucasoid versus like a sub-Saharan, and just dating back to like lizard brain times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something that I've noticed about like this whole, migration from the West of, we have these people, these POCs, coming to these majority cream cheese nations, right? Something I've noticed is that like I think what's happening is that we maintain in these like majority cream cheese Western nations these laws and structures that fit us historically as like higher trust societies, higher trust homogenous societies. But you think about people like, the Arab world and stuff, they have something called Sharia law, which is like a very, very strict law of like, if you're caught doing this, like it's almost like if you get caught stealing, it's like you lose that arm you stole with or stuff like that. Where,
Can I add to that real quick?
yeah, go ahead.
That's interesting. You just mentioned about the immigrants in the Arab world. There's also, I don't know if you guys know anything about Dubai and the UAE, that area.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
very
very
strict law,
rich.
very
Yeah.
strict
Yeah,
laws.
they
Yeah.
actually have a huge amount of immigrant population in there because they basically they'll bring in a bunch of Filipinos, a bunch of Jeets, a bunch of people from the Eastern world to basically do cheap construction work, right? But the way they have it set up is in that Arab world, the immigrants they bring in, they have no rights basically. They're not gonna get permanent residence. They get kicked out. They live in shitty conditions. They have so you see what they're essentially they're getting the benefits, but they're not being damaged because it's like, oh, once the work's done, we're gonna kick them all out, and they have no human rights like everybody else. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Um, I'm just gonna land my point real quick. So we have in the Western worlds these like high trust society. We have whatever laws have been working for us for X amount of years, but then we start importing these just other lands, that had typically stricter punishments on stuff, and they come here and they just kind of like get away with stuff. Um, so I think that might be part of the problem. It's just there's like a huge mismatch in the criminal. I guess the way like crime and stuff is not only tolerated but also processed. Because I'm sure in these places like Singapore, the Arab world, a lot of these different societies. I'm not saying everyone's just coming from those places. Obviously, we have a lot of, you talk about Minnesota where like Thomas is from. They have like a huge like Somali immigrant, thing going on where it's like, I'm just saying where it's like, these people typically have much more stricter laws, and I feel like they come here to the West where there's a lot more of high trust and a lot more leniency, and that leniency it's like kindness taken for weakness. They if they know they just get a slap on the wrist, of course they would grape someone or do something really heinous.
Yeah, let me tell you the statistic from the Dominican Republic. Do you know that 60% of the Dominican Republic prison population is awaiting trial? 60%. So,
Jeez.
yeah,
Wait, can you repeat
yeah.
that?
60% of the prison population in the Dominican Republic is awaiting trial. They're in prison, but they haven't gotten a trial. And I would say that at this point, most of them are never even going to get a trial. They're just put in there because of whatever they were. So you can imagine the level of how this organized. I mean, how can you build a fucking society? I mean, seriously. Like, and that's just one example. There's so many other things. I mean, I can go on and on. But I don't want to do that because I'm gonna look like a self-hating Dominican or whatever.
How
But
you said
that's
you
not
were?
really the case because I still like living there.
Can I ask you? Because
Uh,
you said earlier you were white. What do you mean
yeah,
by that?
It's
yeah,
like a
I'm white, dude.
white
Because
I'm
in my
Dominican.
so my
own experience, I've seen Dominicans are obviously lighter skinned than other people, but they still have features that distinguish them from Europeans.
yeah, because most of them are mulattoes.
But
They're
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, are you actually white, or are you just like
yeah,
light skinned?
no, I'm actually white.
I,
Um, I mean, I might have some, I guess, some
because
features, right?
you
Like
said even earlier,
I don't have
you
blue eyes. I don't have
no,
blue eyes.
no, that's not what I
I don't
mean. I
have
mean,
blonde hair.
because
So
for
yeah.
example, right? If you're walking on a street, if a white person sees you, are they gonna assume you're Latino or white? In your experience,
Well, if I don't speak, they'll assume I'm white. But the moment I speak, yeah, they're gonna see, yeah, this dude is Hispanic
that's
because
interesting.
they're gonna feel my accent or and yeah.
That's interesting.
But the thing is, a lot of people, right? They don't, especially Americans, right? They even think Hispanic is a race, right? Which is all Hispanic means is Spanish speaking people. That's what it means,
I know,
right?
but to us white people, we're not in that community. You know what I mean? So to
Yeah,
you, it might not seem a distinction, but to us, it's like that's a whole another world.
right. But
But
um, but yeah, there is
broomstick,
What's up?
are you gonna be having half a children soon, or what's the plan, realistically?
Yeah. So let me talk about this real quick. Yeah. So the way I'm kind of interfacing with things right now are, I think it would be possible if I meet someone who's like has like high respect for me. I have to really feel like I'm respected as kind of like a masculine figure, like a masculine leading figure in a relationship, which is rarer and rarer because the oofy doofy theory and all these guys cuck dancing and bending the knee for women and stuff is getting more and more of just normalized and kind of being normalized as like the normal quote unquote relationship.
Oh my god, did you guys see? Sorry, did you see Macron get slapped by his
Yeah, I saw
broski wife?
that.
This is like a leader of a
Cringe.
world superpower, and he's getting beat around by
Yeah,
his
and in
woman.
the whole story of them meeting, it's like he was groomed and stuff, and she might not even be an actual biological woman. I'm hearing too. It's crazy, man.
I'm leaning towards that. I think it might be true now that I think of
Yeah,
Transvestigation.
it's
yeah.
very
We're gonna have to do a
suspect.
transvestigation.
But real quick with me and the Hobbit children, yeah, it's like and what like it tends to be, the women who do give me that kind of like decent reverence that I think is like baseline necessary for like a good intersexual dynamic in a relationship. It tends to come from like Asian women, basically. WMAF, right?
Yeah, well, even me, right? Like I'm a full blown inkwell, but even me, my experiences, I've noticed like non-cream cheese women treat me friendlier, more like respectful than cream cheese women.
Yeah,
What do you say you were? You're a full blown what?
he's cream
I'm
cheese,
white.
white. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, man, that's the thing though. Is it's like it's more and more looking like the Hoppa pill kind of thing. But there's tough things about that. Like for example, there is a reason, there is like a argument where, okay, if I'm with some like Asian girl, especially if she's kind of like a shorter Asian girl, it's probably better if we have like girl children, because that way like they just dodge inkwelldom altogether. I know it sounds like really cucked, having girls, and we know what like happens to girls nowadays, and there's a lot of dark capsuling stats, like 10% or so of them end up creating content on OF and stuff. But it's better.
Is that
It's
real?
better.
No way.
This is the way I see it, though, right? Even though it's kind of cucked having like daughters, I couldn't live with myself if my son doesn't make it out of the spawn in my son ropes. I don't think I'd be
You
able
know,
to live with myself.
can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do you think in the near future we're gonna see? You know how in places like China, India, they had like female abortion specifically. They try to abort females because in
Right.
their
Right.
culture, there's this like. I think we might see either it's happening already, or we might see like straight up just a common trend of abortion
Right.
for male children.
Yeah.
Because on one end you have like the feminist women, and obviously they have antagonism to having a male child. But then on top of that, you have guys like us. We're gonna be thinking, if I have a son, he might be an inkwell and stuck in my house for like a NEET for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I think that's real, and I think that might be happening because I think it's more of the
Because I heard you guys. Sorry, I heard you guys saying on a stream earlier. You've noticed, like I noticed it too. I seen like more like guys that do have wives and children. I noticed like, where's the sons? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I think it's more like the first option that you're bringing. I think it's just the anti-male rhetoric and the feminists and all that. I think it's kind of pushing things into oh, let's not have boys. But obviously, even if they have boys, they're not going to grow up as boys. They're going to grow up as these like feminized cuck dancers serving women, But yeah, like that's true, man, where it's just like I don't think it's literally we're moving it to like the opposite of what China had back during their one child policy, where they would, abort all the women because they had this idea where like, oh, if we can have one kid, we're gonna have a guy, and he's gonna be a guy who like leads a company. And we saw how that, basically is almost destroyed. That policy is basically single handedly destroyed the dating and mating market of China. I mean, I'd say China, from what I've seen, there might be an argument that it's like a worser dating environment than the U.S. It definitely is not good. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that, but
Yeah, I wouldn't say culturally they're as worse as us, but in pure numbers, like if you're a guy, there's just not enough women over there.
You're probably if
Yeah.
you're a guy, you're
It's
probably
probably a nightmare, dude.
right.
I mean, you
It's
see them
probably a
guys.
nightmare.
You've seen these Chinese guys. They're going to fucking Africa. They're going to Africa to get married and have children.
A lot of these Chinese guys are dropping like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on like dowries and these weird like cuck servient payments to women and stuff.
Yeah, because they're very, they're very white knighted. They're
Yeah.
very, what do you call it, manginas. I mean, especially like in India, Chinese,
very
all these
male
places, like,
male utilitarian culture. It's that kind of
oh yeah,
yeah.
and that's how
Men don't
even
have
the
inherent
DR is
value.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
don't
also,
give inherent value to men.
another aspect is in those types of cultures, those conservative cultures, whatever you want to call them, there's an emphasis of when the parents grow old, what are they going to do? They're going to live with their son and the son's wife and his family. And it's like, so automatically, the son in a family, he is being burdened. He is being put in a situation where in the future, he's going to have to make money to take care of his own family, plus his older parents. And he's going to, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a daughter, she's kind of free. She can go off, fuck around.
Yeah.
Like I straight up know, I know guys from these type of countries, they have their fucking boomer parents living with them and they're like stuck.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a huge issue where we have that here in the U.S. too, where it's just the tax burden. Like, cream cheese, white guys, paying, they're the ones actually like contributing. It's literally just Asian guys and white guys are the only ones like contributing to the tax system. Women are taking more than they're giving and putting in. People of color, other than the Asians, they're the ones taking more than they could put in. So it's a lot of this culture is just kind of let's run on the back of whitey, especially men. Just let's run on the back of productive white and Asian men. Camel,
Right.
I know you said you're not a camel. Sorry, I'm just gonna call you okay. Writes broomstick. I thought about this. My question is, if you have a daughter, who the hell is she going to marry and have kids with at the end of the day? I mean, hopefully, for me, I guess I'd feel less cucked if she's somewhat monogamous and with like a decent guy, and by decent I mean like someone who's has obviously an ability to provide, has like some decent level of like masculine ability to lead, but also someone I can get along with if I'm going to be like the father-in-law. Someone who I can like respect as like a younger man who's maybe going to like,
Something I've like paid attention to is I at this point I definitely say if fathers, they just have no control on if your daughter is going to be like I told you, my job, I've seen this situation, these I seen girls from rich, nice families, successful, and they just go full degenerate mode. It's like you have no control.
Yeah, I'm not expecting to have no control or nothing. I hope like maybe in the teenage years I can instill some decent judgment, because I think that's the issue the most I'm seeing with like modern women is their judgment is horrible.
Moved to Germany. Do you see this?
Moving to
Does
Germany,
he not know?
Yeah. I mean, Germany is just another Western shithole kind of for dating.
It's just behind us, really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean,
so is that what it's gonna be then, Brewster? We're gonna have a holy race of Happas to rule the earth in 100 years.
I mean, shoot, I think the Happas are gonna be on the ascendant. I think even Chaldean Crusade was talking about how some Happa kids can look better than some cream cheese kids.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm being 100% serious. Like I said, I worked in these rich. I've noticed it too. Like these rich guys, they'll be with Asian women. It's like, and they have.
But dude, the money. Asian women now are doing better than the white women on the dating apps. Like they're getting more swipes. It's like by the numbers. And I think that's because
guys aren't even trying anymore with white.
Yeah, because guys know that okay, the difficulty buff is not worth it when it comes to like Stacy's. They'd rather go for Ling Lings. Ling Ling is like the new normal difficulty. Like it used to be like your looks match Stacy was like the normal difficulty. Now that's like Dark Souls difficulty.
Have you guys been friend requested by like AI generated woman on Facebook?
Yeah, of course.
Like deep fake images.
Oh man, I'm seeing these AI women profiles everywhere online. It's insane, bro. These fake women.
I had like this super slim Asian deep fake profile, friended me on Facebook and started talking to me, seeing if I would I would fall for her. For all I know, it's probably a guy, right? I mean, who else is gonna be messing around like that?
All right, guys. I'm gonna do like a 3-5 minute warning. Gotta call it here soon.
All right.
Brutal.
Yeah, I know, guys.
What do you guys got planned for the weekend?
Shit, man,
Just right.
I gotta do study cell stuff, man. It's kind of sucks, but
Oh man,
yeah, try to make progress on
that's
my
too
life somehow.
brutal.
You know, I really want to plan a summer vacation, but I don't know where I'd go. Like, I actually did get my passport renewed and stuff, but
That
it's like
that's so fun.
you know, one of the sorry to interrupt, but one of the hard
No,
things to cope with is like, you know, even though I know it'd be nice to go to a foreign country, really get some unique perspectives. And honestly, the other thing too that I really want to get out of here is because I just really want to like experience that like value increase, or like just experience like not being invisible. Because you know, if you're like a sub 8 guy in the West, even if you are like tall or cream cheese or whatever, like you're still gonna have some level of like invisibility. And I kind of want
I
to
mean,
just get, you know, a different experience, you know. But I
I've had yeah, I've been having that experience recently too. Like I've even had my boss come up to me because you know in the States, if you don't use your vacation days, they ran them out at the end of the year, right?
mhm.
And my boss is coming up and he's like, "Hey Nick, you gotta use your fucking. You got like 2 weeks of vacation. You gotta use it. I got and I have money. I have vacation time, but it's like, where the fuck am I gonna go? You know, I'm
Yeah.
like a lonely inkwell man. Where am I gonna
The
go?
thing is like I don't want to, you know, it's the summer, so it's going to be too hot to go to somewhere like Thailand or something like that. Like it's just going to be
Yeah,
hot and
and
miserable.
but that's the thing. You don't want to go to like these insane. That's where all the passport pros go. You don't want to
Yeah.
go to Thailand. Fucking these.
It is played out. Yeah, I agree. It's like, you know, I'm going to go to basically a pay for play place. Like I'm not really going to go to a possible Shangri-La.
That's kind of been my position recently too. Is like if I do travel outside, it's in that mindset, go somewhere where it's pay for play.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just tough, man. Because I mean, for me, I'd like to obviously, um, I don't know, just kind of like get a little bit of everything. You know, maybe
What's your stats, but what's your height, broomstick?
uh, I'm a couple inches over 6 feet.
Oh my god, it's over, and this guy's
Yeah,
struggling.
yeah, man. I know. I mean, hey,
Oh
man.
man,
Like, I actually think rehab room is correct. That the ideal, you know, people always espouse like the ideal male height is like 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", or something. But I think it's actually like what Rehab Room says. It's like 6'7" nowadays, because I think that thing he says about it's not about you being taller than her. I think it's more about like you being taller than other guys and just in general mogging
oh
other
my god,
guys. And
Yeah,
bro. If
I've
I'm
seen.
true.
ever,
Go ahead.
have you noticed this? If you're ever around young guys like Zoomers 20 around the early, I've noticed they're all height mugging me, and I'm like 5'11". I'm not like a manlet,
Right.
and I'll routinely get height mugged by these Zoomers that are like a couple years younger than me. They're like 6'2", 6'3". It's like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, the Zoomers are tall as fuck. I don't even know why, man. I think it's literally like maybe it is like,
I
you
mean,
know, the previous
it might
generation
just straight up be
selecting for height.
eugenics, right?
Yeah, like it could be the previous generation of women, just, you know, because they have their own money now, yada yada. They're maybe selecting for just taller guys, and the inkwell short cell guys are just kind of being left in the dust. Or it could be just something like in our biology knows that the market's getting rougher, and that guys are, you know, because I have this theory that autism is going up kind of as a response to like the globalization of the world, the interconnectedness of technology. You know, I think this is in the screen time that's going up. I think this is leading to more and more autistic guys. Because I think it's like the world's way of kind of trying to like make a desperation heave to like be able to pass genes on. Because if they know that like, okay, normal doesn't cut it, we have to be abnormal. And I think height might be similar, where it's like these it might be something weird in like the HGH or some part of our brain or something, where it's like it's just telling these Zoomer guys like you have to get taller because it's otherwise you're just gonna be inkwell or something. Like it's like some arms race type shit. It's really weird.
Yeah, man. And like if average man is gonna be like 12 feet tall or some
Yeah,
shit, it's gonna be insane.
yeah. I think the tallest man ever recorded was like he was like 8'2" or some shit. It's gonna be some shit like that, man.
He would be watching this
Yeah, but
stream
that
currently.
is abnormally tall.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, dude, height is very important, and I think there's a biological thing there too, right? Like protection, and it matters a lot the context, right? So if the other men around you are taller than you, then yeah, that will
Right.
make you look pretty bad. And I could tell, dude, because when I moved from DR to Florida, right? Like the average height in DR, I'm taller than average in DR, and in America, I'm average. So go figure.
Brutal.
Yeah, and it does make somewhat of a difference, but that's not
Yeah,
all of it.
the thing
No.
about height that's interesting, and the studies I've seen, is guys tend to prefer girls who are only a couple inches shorter than them. So you take, if you're like 5'11", you'd love to score with like a 5'8", 5'9" Stacy. Like, don't get me wrong, that makes a lot of sense. But girls tend to like guys, and the stat I seen was they like an 8-inch height difference. So if you're like a 5'4" woman, which is like the norm or whatever, you want a guy who's 6 foot. But I think that is like dated data. You know what I'm saying? I think this is data from like before the lockdown and stuff. So I think the data now would be like stretched out. So I think it still maybe is consistent where like most guys, like what Shade and Crusade says, they kind of view shorter women as like incel factories. So they'd prefer a girl who's maybe only a couple inches shorter than them. But I think what's happening with TikTok and just the things, the social messaging and stuff like that, is that girls are being kind of like propagandized to like look for height more. And I think that what used to be like an 8-inch difference in height was like viewed as like very sufficient, ideal, not too much, not too little, like just right. I think that window is being pressed up where they want something like a guy who's like close to like a foot taller, maybe even more.
A foot taller.
Yeah, dude, I'm not even kidding. I mean,
Bro, I've seen it, bro. I've seen these girls. They'll be with their
Yeah.
boyfriends, and he looks like it's a daughter with the father. It's crazy.
Well, especially in New York, dude. There's probably a lot of tall people there, right?
Oh man,
I would not want to be around there.
I don't get, like, people say like, oh, if you're like 6 foot, if you're like 6'2" or whatever, they're like, you're in the top 9% of height globally or whatever. I don't see that, because I feel like all I'm seeing are like tall motherfuckers. But the other thing too
but
is
globally, you gotta
right.
Globally, they're counting like malnourished children in some
Yeah,
Ethiopian village.
So it must
America,
be more like
America is very tall, by the way.
Yeah. So
is Europe. So
we
all
must
the
have
developed countries are
on
very
top of
tall.
that, if you segregate by the races, it's even worse. It's like if you're a white guy, you're competing with white height, and you see what I mean?
I wouldn't be surprised if like 25% of Gen Z is like 6'2" or higher. I don't know. Maybe I'm like yapping, but like it seems like that. Like there's too many tall motherfuckers.
Like I said, man, I'm like kind of dead on the average at 5'11", and I definitely noticed Gen Z, like most of the time they are taller than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but dude, you're in New York City.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
yeah.
even like these non-cream cheese Gen Zs. Like it's crazy. Even the
Oh, yeah.
non-cream cheese Gen Zs are tall now. You noticing this?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see some actual statistics on this, but yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Too brutal.
it's brutal for me. Like, one thing I will say, I hate to close on this, but this is so cringy, but it's like I've almost like fucking like tricked my brain or fucked up my brain, where it's like I just know that if like a girl's significantly shorter than me, I know that I have like a better chance with her. So I almost like go for them a bit more or something, because I just know like we were talking about like an 8-inch height difference is something that they tend to look for. But I think my theory is it's kind of closer to like 10 to 12 inches probably is their ideal range nowadays. But yeah, it's like, ideally, I would like a girl.
Something that
I would
real
like
quick,
a girl
something
who,
you gotta
okay,
take
go
into
ahead.
account. Oh my bad. Something you gotta take into account is we talk about Apex Widowed. What was it, Chad Widowed, right?
Yeah, Chad Widowed or
There's kind of something with height there too. Like if a girl has a boyfriend that's like 6'4", do you think she's gonna date a guy later in her life that's 5'11"? Like she's not gonna respect that guy.
Yeah, man. I and this is weird because the ex I had who I dated for the longest is now dating like a guy, she's like a couple inches under the normal female height. So, she's like 5'1", 5'2", or something.
She's
and
a womanlet.
Yeah, and then but she's dating this guy who's like a manlet now, like this ethnic manlet. So it's kind of weird. I almost feel like either is like what you're saying, like there is something about being alpha widowed or something like that, or it's possible that girls kind of like maybe to kind of like stick up a middle finger to their like past guys, they want to like date a guy who's like an opposite of them. But then I also think it's possible that I think it's possible that I don't know. I tend to lean that it's what you're describing, where it's like they're just kind of gonna be alpha widowed, but they kind of suck
Well,
it up and deal with it
in that
because
specific situation, right?
right,
I would say, from first glance, I would say him as an ethnic man, the requirements white women place on ethnic men are not the same as they would place on a cream cheese man. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
Like they're not gonna expect like Quan to be 6'4", right? But they're gonna expect Brad to be 6'4". See
right,
what I'm saying?
right.
The bar is higher. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I think a lot of women compromise where it's like, okay, he's maybe not the physical specimen I'd like him to be. He's maybe not like the kind of specimen I'd like to take into the bedroom or whatever, but he does cuck dance for me like this. He bends the knee for me on this. He's utilitarian and provides for me on this. I think they kind of make their compromises, especially as they get older.
Well, even beyond that, I'm kind of like different from the general black pill sphere, where I believe personality and socialization is very important in additional looks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as most black pills, they kind of disregard that completely.
Yeah, I think they all kind of
Like
develop
I've seen
together,
it, you know
but
what I
yeah,
mean? I've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
these oofy doofy guys who, according to the black pill, should not be getting anything, but they are way cute girls just because of the social pill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their charisma max. They have they may be
Not even just that; they just have like a wide social circle. You know what I mean?
they have like social calibration that inkwells in these spaces don't have. Yeah.
Yeah, like what's the Inkwell gonna do this weekend? He's gonna be rotting at home all weekend.
Right.
Meanwhile, these type of guys, they have plans. They're out.
Yeah, they have like they have a girlfriend, and their girlfriend has girlfriends, and then so they go out with them. And yeah, I know what you mean. It's just like it's a different level of charisma maxed social calibration kind of build. I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, it's just I don't know what to. I think those people are just you got to consider like these are people who have like stand up comedian levels of charisma almost, and they can kind of like use it to like circumnavigate their looks match, in their looks tier, and they can kind of like punch up, date above that. All right, guys. Any final thoughts?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would just say hang out. I'm gonna end the stream, but hang out here for a second, guys. We'll talk for a second off stream. I'd like to exchange your guys' discords or something if you guys wanna. I'd maybe like to invite you guys back. It'd be great to hear from either one of you. You guys were both great guests.
Before you end, I just want to say I'm attempting like a little experiment, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have any experience with psychedelics, that type of stuff.
Yeah, a little bit
I've
with
done
psilocybin. A little. That's the only one.
Yeah, I'm gonna be taking like a large amount of mushrooms, and let's just see what happens. Is it gonna cure my inkwelldom? Is it gonna
Right.
change my inkwell personality? Let's see.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would say don't do it, but I would be a hypocrite because I did it.
Yeah.
See?
I did a 3-5 of shrooms summer of 23. That was the last time I did any of them, and I've done them a couple times before that.
How'd you feel?
I did okay.
Were you alone?
No. I had a buddy with me, and I went to like an art museum. It was actually a really cool time.
Brutal.
Yeah, but
See, that's the thing. Even if you're an inkwell, you can't even do drugs with other people.
yeah.
But yeah, how did you feel? What was the experience?
I don't know. It was kind of a the come up was the come up's a little scary for me on psilocybin. And I don't like the whole. I feel like if I ever do it again, I'd maybe want to do it like in capsules or something that's maybe like easier on the stomach.
Well, how many grams did you take?
It was a 3.5.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I
Because
did
I
a
don't.
heroic
I mean,
dose
that's not a
of
heroic dose, but
psilocybin.
it's
Yeah, that's
definitely
why
a
I'm
legit
surprised. It's
dose.
kind of
Yeah,
low.
yeah, it's a legit dose. But yeah, no,
Wait,
like
is that dry or wet?
yeah, it was just like dried mushrooms. But it was
Okay, but that's a pretty decent dose. Heroic dose would be 5 grams of dry psilocybin mushroom,
right.
and
Mm.
I do not recommend that. That
Wait,
is
how
too
many grams? Say
much.
that
I'm
again.
telling you. 5 grams, dry.
I believe dry is stronger than wet, right?
Yeah.
Remind me.
Of course, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
brutal. So yeah, what I've heard is basically 5 is the equivalent of like 20 grams of wet or some shit like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
would do if it is your first time, do just do like 2 grams at
Well, I don't
most of
know.
dry. Yeah,
Have you guys had experience with like weed edibles, that type of stuff?
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna see what happens. You know, maybe it cures me. Maybe it. Who knows, right?
I wouldn't. I don't know. Like it can definitely like it's a good mental reset is what I found. So sometimes when I feel like I'm kind of on a hedonic treadmill or I'm kind of just like the days are kind of just like bleeding into each other. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, exact. That's how I've been feeling. It's like you're in the same episode of a
It's
TV show, repeating
yes.
every fucking day.
I think there is something to be said about psilocybin mushrooms can help, especially with those feelings. So maybe it is
Mm.
what you need, but I don't want to,
Make
you know.
make sure you're at peace with yourself, dude,
Yes.
because it's some people don't take it well. Um, but I think if you're, it's like it's like when people get drunk, right? Like they'll get too honest, and make sure
Mm.
you do it around the right people as well,
Yeah.
right? Like
Well, no,
you have
I'm
to
gonna be
be.
like I'm gonna be in my mother's basement alone. So
I mean, shit.
Well,
I would say
let me. The only uncomfortable thing about it, dude, is that it's gonna go on for a long time. Okay,
yeah.
you're gonna be on it for like 5 hours, dude, or
yeah,
6 hours.
that's
And I tell you, at one when I did it, because I did 5 grams, and that was a lot. And at one point, I was okay. I'm done. I want to go back to normal, and it wasn't going back to normal. I was gonna be like that all fucking night. You know and I
brutal.
started getting a little scared, and concerned.
B1 in
And
chat.
actually, it feels like an eternity. It literally feels like an eternity when I was on it.
B1 in
But it
chat.
was just yeah.
B1 in chat is writing don't do them alone. I would tend to agree with that because my
What
thing
does he
is
mean? No one eats them fresh.
I think what he means is like right after they're picked. I don't think anyone eats them right after they're picked out of the ground or
I mean,
whatever.
yeah, there's no
Yeah.
chance
Or
I'm
you
gonna be.
could.
But yeah, I would say don't do them alone because the thing about that though is well, I would say you could, but you shouldn't because you want someone to know, like, just for responsibility reasons that, like, so you're not just going out in public, like, stoned as fuck on mushrooms, like, doing shit. But I would definitely, like, if you can, like, go outside and kind of, like, do something, like, if you enjoy time in nature or something like that, like, it's a really good time for something like that because it kind of reconnect you to, like, what it means to be human and shit.
Hmm.
Like what I've experienced, like it's that feeling of ego death. I'm not saying I had an ego death full on, but you do start processing the world at a more baseline level where it's like you can abstract and it's like, okay, instead of thinking about like I'm this person, part of this race, part of this society, whatever, you like your mind just goes to like this is the grass, this is the water that gives me life, these are the ants that forage for food, that are part of the food chain. Like you start thinking about like the universe in different like building blocks rather than the social constructs that you've always been fed to, and you just kind of see, you break beyond those.
I'm about to see Saint Hamoudi in my mushroom trip.
Yeah, man.
You're gonna see the elves if you do it.
The
Oh
Clockwork
yeah.
Elves.
Oh no, you'll see elves, dude.
Yeah,
And there's a spiritual dimension to this, dude. So I would be like cautious about
yeah,
it.
the elves. I mean,
Um,
that's definitely like heroic dose stuff. I didn't see no elves, but in the heroic dose, you might. I know definitely DMT. You're gonna see L's if you ever do DMT.
I'm trying to do that too, but it's harder to get.
Yeah. No,
Like
still
you'll see,
brutal.
and I don't know. I mean, I say elves, right? But it's like entities. You'll feel like entities, and they come and like almost telepathically communicate with you and shit like that. But it doesn't truly feel. So it's not always like a positive energy. That's what I'm trying to say.
right. It's
Well, I've
especially
even experienced that.
especially the
I've
come up, man.
experienced. No,
Come
go
up
ahead.
can
My
be
bad.
rough. Yeah, I would just say like the come
Yeah.
up can be rough, man. Like, but once you're actually like tripping and you're past the come up, I think it's a good feeling. Like I would describe it as imagine there's like a hot tub or something. You dip your toes in. You by the time you those first few seconds, you're maybe really uncomfortable. You're like this does not feel right and stuff. But then your body acclimates it, and then eventually you just realize you're in a pool, and then when you get to that point of the trip when you're like acclimated to the temperature and you feel like you're sitting in the pool, that can be a comforting feeling because you know it won't get worse or anything, and then you can kind of just ride out that feeling the rest of the trip. But for
Brutal.
me, I've really just been uncomfortable with the come ups, and that's kind of why I stopped doing them. I haven't done them in over 2 years. About
Mm.
I used to do it
Boils.
like once a year, kind of like to reset. I was doing that since like my first one was like 2019 or 2020, and I would do it like once a year to kind of just like I was saying, if I feel like the days were bleeding into each other, it was a good time to just have a trip and just kind of take a step back and just kind of reframe, and re-interface with the world of what it means to be human.
Brutal boils. It looks like this is the life of an inkwell.
Yeah, man. But if you do proceed with it, I hope you have a good trip. But no peer pressure here, and also just try to make sure your environment's as like well controlled as you can. Like we were talking about, try to make sure you're in like a good headspace. You have good self talk. You're not like negative.
Okay, man. I'm just gonna go all in. I'm going. Because I remember, not the first night, but like one of the first time I did eat weed edibles, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did like a ton. Like I think it might have been like 30 milligrams worse.
That's a lot for someone who doesn't use. Yeah, 30 is quite a lot.
Yeah. And I remember at the time I was like down and out. At that time I was probably at my worst in general for everything in my life, right? And bro, I had like this. I was literally having for like 2 hours a battle in my mind, like a debate with myself. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
crazy. But to say that, I actually think it was for the better. Because I literally it made me challenge stuff about myself, and it's like afterwards I came out better, and
Yeah.
shit actually got better.
Yeah, that I noticed that too when I first started using like marijuana stuff because I used to like the THC. I think what happens is the THC it makes your neurons continually fire. So if you're like an overthinker or
Oh
you're
yeah, oh
or
man,
you're
that's a
big
big one. I remember it. I
yeah,
remember
if
when I
you're
was in the
I was just
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead.
If you're big into like having an inner monologue, you're like kind of an overthinker. That's what THC will kind of do to you is it'll really like especially when you first start it, like it'll really like it'll force you to like think thoughts that you might think are uncomfortable and stuff, and then you kind of have to interface with those. And so I used to like have those thoughts, and then I'd like write them down, and then I'd read them again the next day when I'm sober, and I'm like, okay, wow, I legit need to work on this. Like I would just write something about like, hey, you're not in good shape. Hey, you need to become more healthy. Stuff like that.
Bro.
Yeah.
Well, boys.
Ropium, man, it was good to have you. I guess I'm gonna end the stream and then we can exchange contact info.
All right. Well,
All right, sounds good, guys. Hey, we're gonna end the stream here on the Broomstick Show. I really appreciate everyone chiming in. You guys know how important your time is, and you choose to spend it here, so it means a lot, and I appreciate all.